Following show may shock, disturb, and offend some viewers. The opinions, theories, and facts shared on this podcast are not widely accepted by the brainwashed masses, especially those who find dark humor offensive. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jeffrey Dahmer soaked in blood. The Unabomber blowing up. Waco, Texas, and Heaven's Gates. Aliens modified, meant for apes. JFK shot in the head by the CIA. Bigfoot and the Mothman. Son of Sam talking to dogs again. Witches, ghosts, and goblins. Mysterious noise and hauntings. Dark arts and the skull and bones. Most celebrities are probably cloned. So if you're feeling all alone, crack a beer and get stoned. I welcome you to the podcast Strange Brew. We're here to entertain you. We're here to entertain you.
It's about to get strange.
The middle of the 20th century ushered in the swinging 60s in England. It was a decade of unprecedented freedom for teenagers. But for some children in the northwestern city of Manchester, the 1960s were nothing short of a nightmare. From fairgrounds to dances, and even grandmothers' houses, children were taken and their short lives swiftly ended by a young couple forever known as the Moors Murderers.
Welcome back, everybody, to the show. Welcome back. I'm your host, Tomcat, aka Tom Thompson, the Raptilian, and this is Strange Brew Podcast. You can find all my music on all music platforms. Welcome, everybody. We're getting back into true crime. I'm very excited. This is, it won't let me click on the soundboard with my serial killing gloves. This is Strange Brew.
Hey, hold that. Yeah. Listen to this was coming. You know what it is? What? It's Strange Brew
Podcast.
That's fucking weird.
And who am I joined by?
You know, it's funny, actually, before I say anything else, I was going to, earlier on, only for I was so sick, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try and dig out that blonde Jimmy Savile wig.
Yeah.
And try and dress up as her.
Oh,
Something.
Yeah.
And I had planned to just say nothing, and now I'm kind of pissed off that I didn't, because I wasn't expecting that you were going to do that.
Yeah, I always try to, I almost try to fool you. I try, like, obviously I had the button up shirt and no hat on and stuff, and I was like, okay, and then I switch it up. Yeah, because she's kind of a frightening looking woman, I'm not going to lie.
She is, right? And like, I'm sure we'll get into it, but like, I've heard a lot of accounts of like, a lot of the men, she got a lot of attention and stuff, which I was kind of like, well, it's
different times, man.
Yeah, it must have been slim pickings, because I don't think I would look at that bitch and be like,
look at that jaw, though, right? Like, it's like her face slumps down. It's weird.
I'm not gonna lie, kind of looks like a guy dressed up as a woman.
Well, maybe it is. Maybe it is, you know? So we're getting back into true crime.
But he has a true crime podcast, like he does one.
We haven't, I love true crime. It's one of my favorite topics to cover. And so I was like, you know, I'll dress like I'm in the 1960s. I look like a guy that, you know, would be in like Manchester, and I'm like, you know, just like creeping around cars or something like that and being like, shh, just like grabbing women off the streets and stuff, you know?
Why do we love true crime, though? I often wonder that. It's like, what's the fascination there?
It's just like what people and human beings are capable of. You know what I mean? Bet she could suck a golf ball through a garden hose. Maybe that's why, you know? Maybe you hear rumors like, you hear Myra? She's got a throat of a lizard, man. I don't know if the lizards have great throats. You'd have to ask some Indians, but you know, it's just like they hear these rumors and stuff about her, and then she's like, or like, you know, the idea of like throughout high school and stuff like that, there's always that chick that's like a slut, and like you hear about it, and you're like, if she's easy, I'll try to get with her. You know what I mean? Just to get another notch on your belt. You know what I mean? These are my gloves. When I dressed up for, we had a Christmas party, my wife's work, and I was, it was James Bond themed. So I was like a James Bond villain. I had like a suit, and
you cleared that up pretty quick there. 'Cause for a second, when you were like, we had a Christmas party and I got these black leather gloves, I was like, where is this going?
Yeah, I know, literally. Yes, so this will be fun. Let's just get right into it. In the 1960s, Ian Brady, a slender 27-year-old stock clerk with sharp features and a nice pompadour, and his girlfriend Myra Hindley, a 23-year-old typist. What a job! You just sit there and you're like, you know what I mean? Were suspected of killing 5 children. Grisly details, abduction, torture, beatings, and sexual abuse were disclosed in courts, turning the couple into the most hated in Britain. The most hated couple in Britain. Before I was throwing this at you, because I've had this written out for a while, I've wanted to cover this case for a long time. What did you hear? Have you heard of Myra Hindley and Ian Brady before?
Yeah, definitely. Like, but I think I don't know if I'd class them as like, I know a lot of true crime channels and stuff now class them as Britain's most hated couple or most whatever. I don't know if from being over this side of the world, I don't know if I feel that same sentiment, to be honest with you. I feel like, is it Ian Huntley and that bitch that he was going out with that killed those 2 schoolgirls?
Yeah, but this is just like the depravity of these murders and of their children. And I remember him, but also when eventually we get into what's the other chick's name? Fred West, and then I can't remember the other his woman. It is interesting, the killer couple vibe, right? Because we'll get into it, but people claim that maybe Myra would have lived a normal life without Ian Brady. And he was like he loved Nazis. She was interested by how far right he was and shit. And I was like listening to this talk, and I'm like, he like made her read Mein Kampf, and there's what else did he like? Mein Kampf and something else, and he's like obsessed with Nazis. And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. Like we all are nowadays, you know.
It is weird when you see that. Like, I don't know if well, I suppose I can't look at it from that perspective because I don't behave like that, but I can't imagine myself I don't know, I can't imagine myself brainwashing a chick in that sense. I've probably definitely done that to a degree when I was younger.
Yeah.
Because some of my friends at the time used to call me Mr. Negative. Do you know who that is? Character
No.
from Spider-Man.
Oh, that's so funny.
He basically uses negative energy, and it's like this whole thing. But like the guys used to use it with me and be like, "Oh, you do like this weird like reverse psychology, negative energy thing on chicks to make them like you, and then you don't care about them and treat them like shit." I was like,
That's funny because my original like hip hop name when I was like 14, it was like TCP or some stupid shit like that. But then after like when I actually started recording stuff like legitimately, just not on a tape recorder, and I had this little soundboard thing when I was like 15, I went by Negative. I have still like a burnt disc of like Negative 2000 whatever it was, like 2008 or some shit. And it's just so funny. It's like, because I was like, everything I rapped about was negative. So I'm like, and I was also kind of like a psychic vampire in some regard and consuming energy of people, I'm sure. And it is interesting because even like they remind me much of like Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. And then it's like, oh, she was viewed as like, oh, she didn't do it. She's innocent. She was brainwashed. And then they get to the tapes, which I was in a law class where we talked about this. And there was a student that his mom, I think, was in the courtroom during the time, or his aunt, I think, during when they were playing these tapes. And I guess you couldn't see them, only the jury could, but you could hear them. And it sounded messed up. And it was proof that like Carla Homolka was active in the murder and actually reveled in it as much as Paul Bernardo did. So it's interesting these couples because what's her Mary and Fred West, I think her name was. That couple's like just as like crazy as Myra Hindley and Ian Brady. Also in Britain, of these like psychotic killers that like somehow there's this chemistry that just meets and then they're like, let's kill together, and it's fucking it was just Valentine's Day, so they're like, love.
I'll probably I will definitely play devil's advocate at points, but I don't know if I buy that shit of like, oh, well, you were so manipulated and you had no idea.
Yeah.
Doing all that thing. I guess sometimes when I listen to a show or somebody who has a take on it like that, it's kind of easy to go, yeah, well, you know what? She was kind of raised weird, and maybe the guy was like, very overbearing, and he just kind of made her do whatever. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she was this. Maybe she was that. And I'm like, yeah, but like, don't know. I think that's easy to say once you've been caught. And you're like,
Yes.
oh, well, I guess I didn't know anything about it. I guess I was just tricked into it all.
And that's what always happens too with with women.
And we'll see later on in this case, like both of them basically went, he went, it was that bitch, and she went, it was him.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
So yeah, everybody that's watching this live, obviously like, share, comment, share it as much as possible. And for all the audio listeners, yeah, you essentially get things late because we go live all the time. And I'm trying to do that a little more often because I people like being interactive in the chat. But then it sometimes doesn't come out till weeks later. And it's just the way it goes because we're trying to release episodes just weekly on the audio, and then on the going live. Sometimes we're going live a couple times a week. And there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be getting into. I'm very excited. I have some interesting guests and some weird stuff coming. There's definitely a ton that I want to get to. I'm very excited because there's stuff that I'm trying to bring the crew together at some point of me, you, and Billy. That's my goal, is for us to somewhat do that more often. Do it even once a month. But it's a snow day. We literally got snowed in. Like, there's snow everywhere. It's crazy how much snow came down over the last couple of days. So I was like, you know what? I haven't been drinking really at all. So I'm gonna start. I was like, I'm gonna have some day drinks. And this is pretty good. It's like 6%, but it's it's called Blue Lobster. It's a vodka soda lemon lime. But it's there's not much sugar. It's probably fake sugar, but it tastes like a kind of like a vodka tonic with like a lemon and lime.
I like that now. I like that kind of drink. I like a lot of that stuff. I do like a lot of that stuff. Sick boy.
That's
what I might change my name to, from horror boy to sick boy.
I know. So let's get to it. Ian Brady. Brady was born in Glasgow, Scotland, as Ian Duncan Stewart. It is delicious. And on the 2nd January 1938, to Margaret Peggy Stewart, an unmarried tea room waitress. Did you guys have that? It's you guys just they're, instead of like a bartender, it's like a tea waitress. She just gives you tea. How about sit down and have a tea?
Not that I ever knew of, but maybe.
So yeah, I guess. It's just weird. The identity of Brady's father was never been reliable. It was uncertain. Interesting, because then a lot of men that are raised without fathers, either it's that thing of you were beat by your father, like Paul Bernardo, and then you become like a killer. But sometimes that never even happens. Ted Bundy had nothing really happened to him, and he just flicked a switch. He played porno, which is so retarded. But then there's a lot of people that are born without fathers, and then they act irrational, and
Yeah, and there's definitely, look, I know, and I'm sure the statistics prove that as well, that there's a direct correlation there between kids that grow up with no male figure in the family.
Look at the black communities.
Okay, this is kind of what I was getting at, right? Yeah. And before everyone jumps on me and says, "Oh, fucking scumbag,
racist,"
yeah, before anybody does that, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just using that as an example. Is if you actually think about it for a second, though, I wonder. We always talk about, these kids grow up without dads and shit like that, and that's why. They kind of run wild because they have no dad to maybe punch them in the fucking head and be like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Now, the other side of that is, right, if you're shitbag enough to have a kid and then run away, are you going to be any better if that shitbag low-life dad is in your life? Probably not.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the other side of it, because the same dude that's ran away on you probably has 10 other kids. So it's
yeah, that's true.
Also, actually, before we move on,
yeah.
You said about you were talking about Ian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and his dad. Did you know any more about that whole thing, or some of the rumors around that?
As far as I don't think so. I'm trying to look.
So no, I don't know how true any of this is. There was rumors that supposedly his mother came out and said that his dad was a journalist. That was all she said, and that he died. That's what it was. He was a really well up, famous journalist, but he had died by the time he was born. And then her story, I think, changed later in life. She said, "Oh no, he was still a journalist, but he might have just moved away." And I think that was all that was ever said about it, which leads me to believe that maybe he was just some dirtbag, like
He probably was.
dummy junkie.
Your father was an astronaut. He went to the moon and he got lost on the moon. He was the
You know what I mean? Like,
greatest.
yeah, that's like one of those things you could say, like, you know, your dad is Rocket Man, like, and he just went off and he never
Your
came back.
your dad is actually Jimmy Stewart, you know, or something like
Yeah,
it's like
like-
someone who's super famous.
I suppose maybe back then, though, that seemed like a nice thing to tell a kid. It's like, oh, your daddy went off to save
Your
the
dad
world.
is Keith Richards. He fucked me in the back of a studio. You know what I mean? And it's just like, really? It's like, yeah, your dad's a really famous rock star, but he didn't give a fuck about you. And it's like, oh wow. And then he tries to like find Keith Richards. It's fucking crazy. So yeah, Hugh died 3 months before Brady was born. Supposedly, Stewart had little support to the mother. After a few months, was forced to give her son into the care of Mary and John Sloan, a local couple with 4 children of their own. Brady took their family name and became known as Ian Sloan. His mother continued to visit him throughout his childhood. Various authors have stated that he tortured animals, although Brady's he objects to such accusations. Age 9, he visited local Loch Lomond with his family, where reportedly discovered an affinity for the outdoors. A few months later, he moved to a new council house and over an overspill estate at Pullock. He was accepted at Shawlands Academy, a school for above-average pupils. At Shawlands, his behavior worsened as a teenager. He twice appeared before juvenile court for housebreaking. That's a weird way to phrase it. He left at the academy at age 15 and took a job as a T-boy at the Harlan and Wolff shipyard in Govan. So he's a T-boy? He's getting teabagged by all the guys at the dock.
Yeah, weird.
Like, what the fuck is a T-boy?
I have.
I'll get me my T-boy.
Maybe that's what it is. I've literally.
I need some
Never
caffeine,
heard
you
of that.
piece of shit. Go get me some, you fuck. Oh, that's so funny.
You know what though? That actually might be right, because I've definitely heard that, like, even in my lifetime here, like if you went to work on a building site as a kid, like if you were like 16, 17 and you were doing like an apprenticeship or work experience or anything like that, you would be on the building site and you would be dressed like you're some sort of a, you know, a skilled worker or whatever. You'd have your high vis, your boots, whatever your working shit.
Yeah.
But it would literally be a T-boy. Like everyone would be like, right, go get coffees, go get fucking, you know,
Oh, yeah.
breakfast, go get this, go get that. You wouldn't actually do any actual work. They would just use you as like some shit bag to go back and forth.
Makes kind of sense. Go get my tea, boy. And then yeah, his behavior worsened. He left the academy at age 15, took a job as a T-boy. 9 months later, he began working as a butcher's messenger boy. So go talk to the pig farmer, please. I don't know why I always goes like some weird like 1940s guy. British.
Yeah,
Oh,
it reminds me is like someone's like trying to sell papers.
yes, that's some when I think of like old timey shit, it always goes back to like that. And I used to be able to kind of do a British accent, and then it went really bad, and then it never happened again. When I used to attempt
Some of the words in the sentence are British, and then it goes to some accent that I've literally never heard.
and I've done it since the beginning of the show, especially when we were drunk. I just tried, and I try to get Billy to do it. Yeah, like a gopher. Yeah, that's right. It's just like, go get me shit. You know what I mean? Go get me some shit, boy. It's pretty much right. A messenger boy. So he's like, go tell the pig farmer I need some pigs. You know what I mean? So he had a girlfriend, Evelyn Grant, but their relationship ended when he threatened her with a flick knife. After he visited a dance with another boy, he again appeared before a court, this time with 9 charges against him. And shortly before his 17th birthday, he was placed on probation on a condition that he had to live with his mother. But then she had moved to Manchester and married an Irish fruit merchant named Patrick Brady. Oi, Patrick Brady! Ah, does that sound Irish?
I don't know. No, not really. That whole thing just sounds weird though with the mother, because it's like, oh, I can't look after you. It's like too much, so I have to like give you to this family, but I'm also going to keep looming around you. But then also I'm going to move away and marry somebody else as well. I don't know. Like, is she like a little bit
Of a
gone
whore?
as well in the head?
Yeah, it's true. You know, Patrick Brady got Ian a job as a fruit porter. He was a fruit porter, that's for sure. There's rumors that he was he would tiptoe through the dandelions, they say.
Yikes.
I never used that expression. I was like, "What are you tiptoe through to be really gay?"
I
Dandelions.
I heard something else weird about him as well, and it was something that Myra had said, I think, later in interviews, but I'm not sure if it was actually true or not. I don't know if you heard about that like alluded to like some other also kind of gayness.
Well, I heard he was more gay than straight.
Yeah, but like even when
He's
they were
definitely bi, but like he
when
was
they
like,
were like doing stuff together, like some of the things he would ask her to do to him.
oh, like finger his butt or some shit.
No, stick like these huge wax candles up his ass.
Yes, he was. Yeah. What is like? Ian was a secret little Nazi lover too.
I don't know if that was a secret.
Yeah, I know. He was like, read
Because
Mein Kampf,
They
please.
used to sit on lunch breaks together, like reading passages from all these Nazi books to each other.
It's always a weird fascination with like, because I'm fascinated by the fact that what don't we know and what we're being told. Like I've said this on the show numerous times, right? Like what like history is written by the victors. So what are we not told about the other side? What was going on? But like it always seems like some of these they've always had a bad name for sure. I don't think people should glorify them in any way. I do think that people should listen and read things on both sides, right? I've always said this. If you're allowed to read the fucking Communist Manifesto, you should be able to read Mein Kampf. You should be able to look at communism and fascism objectively and try to figure out what these ideologies are or whatever, right? But the thing is, they already have a bad name, but then people like Ian Brady give them a worse name where he's like I don't know, shoving candles up his ass, I guess. And then you have who's the butcher of Plainfield? Ed Gein. Ed Gein was like fascinated by Nazi books and like more fascinated with like because they put out this a lot of this occult stuff of like, oh, they were cutting off skin and putting them into lampshades, and like even though there was no proof of that, people indulged into that, and he would like obsess over that stuff, and then he started making his own lampshades out of skin. Like legitimately. So it's like they already have a terrible name, and then all these serial killers are like, I love these guys. I like their ideas. Sounds like a good time,
Isn't it weird how you can talk about like these people that have committed these crimes, but you can't talk about the things that they were like quote unquote inspired by?
Yeah, I know, right?
Like people wanting to cancel you.
Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack hopped on a fucking candlestick. So, is there anything else? So he shoved candlesticks up his ass?
Yeah, like there's lots of different accounts of like things that she had said, but again, it's hard to take her word. No, I'm not saying that that's not true. I do definitely believe that was probably the
Look
case.
at him down in that little, it looks kind of fruity.
But like, I think both of them are probably super weird. Like she was talking about how like the rough sex turned into like pretty savage stuff, but she was obviously into it as well. So it's like,
Mhm.
like I can imagine she was probably like pegging him with candles and stuff, and just like.
And it was the swinging 60s, right? Like the cultural Marxist bullshit was coming into the forefront, and people were like, it's about freedom. We're going to fuck each other with candles. It was like they were really pushing for that like sexual perversion, but there is obviously like people do what you want behind closed doors. I couldn't give a shit. Don't do it in public though. And don't try to force it on other people at the end of the day, right? Like you want to be a weird fuck, you know,
be a weird fuck. Lock yourself in a dungeon underground and never come back again.
That's a good idea, right? Like that's what they kind of need to do, right? If you want to like, I'm all for like it can go too far, but like doing stuff like I don't know. Like I don't want to dig myself a hole, but I was like, like tying a chick to a bed is not like a terrible thing as long as everything is consensual. Stuff like that where you're exploring it with a partner that you care about and love or whatever, right? I think should be a thing. But I do feel like it's been force fed this thing of like, just have as much fun as you want with as many people. And then you got AIDS and you're dying,
Do you think in situations like this, like let's say with him, she talked about it, and I definitely do think she had an aspect of this to her as well. There's no point in, she always tries to make out like she was kind of the victim in all this as well, which I also think is bullshit.
Yeah.
I think she's really good at manipulating people. And so was he, which is kind of why they got on so well. But do you think there's an aspect of he knew that was the kind of stuff he wanted to be doing, but he knew that he couldn't just go straight for that with her?
Yeah.
So he had to like be like, okay, why don't we start with like, some light spanking? And it's like, okay, so that's step one. Why don't you stick a candle up my ass and then I punch you in the face over and over again?
Yeah.
Do you think like that's like a tactic in his head, like that he purposely went, right, okay, because she did say that. She was like, we both kind of liked the rougher side of sex, and he would like to spank me and he would like me to like present myself to him and all this, and like he wanted me to always dress like a tart when we were in bed and stuff like that.
That's
But
hot.
then it was like she was talking about like the progression of that, then that turned into like really hard like floggings and stuff where he'd be like beating her with like a stick on the ass and stuff, and it's like, ugh,
Needs more
Christ.
steps. Yeah, well, and that's the thing too. But she was like obsessed with him. It seemed like she would like be like, oh my god, he's talking to me, and according to like, it's just so funny like what people found. But like people found him really attractive. Like he was a popular guy. It seemed like, and women found him attractive.
Well, I
And
will say this, right? If I was to take myself back to then, I feel
yeah,
like you could make more of an argument for him being an attractive dude back then
than
than for
her.
her being an attractive female back then.
Yeah, I know.
'Cause she is just now they're both of them look
Freaky
scary. They
looking.
kind of look like brother and sister there.
Yeah. It is really weird, man. They just look. She looks like she's dead inside. So yeah, it's wild. So then, yeah, he had that girlfriend, Everly Grant, but then he threatened her with a knife for some reason, and then he appeared in court, and then his mom kind of got. He became a fruit porter at the Smith Market, and Ian took Brady's surname. Within a year of moving to Manchester, Brady was caught with a sack full of lead seals. Lead seals? He had stolen and was trying to smuggle them out of the market. He was sent to prison in Manchester. Strange ways.
Which way is, yeah, it's a very weird name for a place.
Really weird for 3 months, as he was still under 18, and I'm sure they got molested and all sorts of shit. All those boys' homes and those like those youth prisons, especially in like the 60s and stuff like that, like or like when they would go to they'd be put in those houses where like the nuns rule, like those priests and nuns or whatever is like a church community, and they'd have to be sent to these places. They would always seem like to get molested, like Charlie Manson, same thing.
Didn't he do some weird stuff as well though when he was a kid? Didn't he rape a kid?
I don't know if we'll get into that, but yeah, I think so. I heard some stuff like that.
I'm pretty sure there's a report of him like raping a kid that I want to say there was a kid bullying somebody. Let me know if anybody's listening
He
to this.
sexually assaulted him. He essayed
Yeah,
him.
and he it was like somebody he was friendly with or something was getting bullied, and he was like, I know what I'll do. I'll catch you on your own, and I'll one up you, and I will assault you.
This was happening so much back then too, dude.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, and I think there's another story of them, and the guy actually came out and he was like, oh yeah, I went to school with him at one point, and we were playing a game, and he got really aggressive and pissed off. So he tied my legs, wrapped them in paper, and then lit it on fire.
Whoa, that's
He
crazy.
lit him on fire. And the guy came out like years later, and he was like, yeah, I was the person he lit on fire. Yeah, and
That's
he was
crazy.
like, look, when we were kids from the areas we were in, we all hung around with pretty rough kids. But he was like, don't ever let anyone make you believe that Ian Brady wasn't the most violent of all of them. He was like, we were all bullies, we were all kind of scummy. It was that kind of, lifestyle we were all brought up in. But don't let anyone for a second let you believe that he wasn't at the top of that ladder.
Yeah. Weird anti-bullying
I mean, right? Like, no, I'm not advocating for this, but if I was a bully and someone done that to me, I probably wouldn't bully anyone ever again.
I got bullied, and I pressed back on
Same.
people. I remember the one time this kid was trying to like fuck with me, and then I don't know, I was like in grade 6 or something like that. I didn't like back then. I was so young, I just didn't like know what to do, so I would just like the uncle was older than me too. He was like in my brother's age bracket friend, and I just like fucking grabbed him by the throat and started fucking strangling him. And I was so young, and then he's like, oh, and everyone was like, yo, put him down. And I was like, I didn't even care. And
You're standing there like Kane going like,
yeah, it's like so dumb, but like you get pushed so far. Like I remember like I mean older kids would bully me, and then when we got into grade 8 and we were the top shit, we ran the school. I've said this story before. We put kids in the gay circle. We'd circle a kid we didn't like, and we kicked them and called them gay. So it's like so bad, man. But like that's what you did, and this is probably what he kind of did. Is like you see this in serial killers too. Is like you push back, especially around this time of like, oh, you want to fuck with me, and then they find them in like by themselves, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna shove a candlestick up your ass. You know, like me and Billy talked about one of the youngest convicted serial killers, Jesse Pomeroy. It's only on audio for everybody watching on video, stuff like that. So there's probably like over 100 and something 50 episodes that were mostly just audio. And he is kids were messing with him. He had like a milky white eye, and then he just like pushed back. And then he started like beating the shit out of kids. He tied one kid to like a post and then just like beat him up. And I'm like, you push these kids too far and you turn them into killers.
yeah, no, look again, right? We're not sitting here for anybody who's going to try and twist this out of context.
Like you're saying it was a good thing. No.
This is the right thing or anything like that, but you're definitely right about that. And I'm not saying these kids are 100% normal to start with or anything, but there's definitely something when you get fucked with constantly and you feel inferior for years and years and years. I would be lying if I didn't say there wasn't an aspect of me, younger me, that would fantasize about like, wouldn't it be great if I could just turn around and just punch the fuck out of everybody and stamp on their heads and like kick them around so everybody would know to leave me alone.
Yeah. And you see that too happening to people. Right?
Yeah. And then now I can only imagine, right? If I suffered, like, I don't know, if I was getting like molested at home or like some crazy shit was happening to me at home as well, I can see how that all starts to compound and it makes this snowball effect. And then eventually you're like, what's a really good idea? Let me just start murdering people. That's
yeah, I know. It's so crazy. And you'd be surprised at what kids are capable of. We've talked about this on the show many times. When the first episode's out on audio, because we had to X so many that went onto like Patreon, is Killer Kids. And like so many, like it was always like kids that were slightly older than they would target like a kid that's like 3 and they'd be like 8 and they do some horrible shit to them. And you'd be surprised what kids can do. And as so then he went to that strange ways for 3 months, still under the age of 18. And then he was sentenced for 2 years in Borstal for training. He was sent to Latchmere House in London and then to Hatfield Borstal in West Riding of Yorkshire. After being discovered drunk on alcohol, he brewed. That's fun. He moved to a much tougher unit in the hall, and then he was released. He was released on November 14th, 1957. Brady returned to Manchester, and he took a laboring job, which he hated, and was dismissed from another job in a brewery and decided to better himself. He obtained a set of instruction manuals on bookkeeping from the local library, with which he was astonished his parents by studying alone in his room for hours. In January 1959, Brady applied for and offered for a clerk job at Millwards, a wholesale chemical distribution company based in Gorton. He was regarded by his colleagues as quiet, punctual, and short-tempered young man. He read books including Teach Yourself German and Mein Kampf, as well as the works of other Nazi atrocities. He rode a Tiger Cub motorcycle. So funny. Oh, man. Those in the 60s, I feel like it was such a fascinating thing for people getting into the Nazi shit. Like, you had punk bands, like the Sex Pistols were obsessed with that shit. Sid Vicious wearing fucking swastika shirts. Like, it was just like a rebellious, like, fuck you to the system shit. And I don't know how much they knew about what was being told or said or happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I suppose that even at the time, they were probably still being pushed, and especially in the UK and stuff, as like the enemy or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think anybody who wanted to like push back against like the establishment were like, oh, well, then I'm going to align myself with the Nazis, of course.
I know. And realistically, what happened? White guys killing other white guys, and now our population is declining since then. Like the world, like a lot of people have acknowledged that like after World War II, the world looked good for about 20 years, and then it went totally fucking downhill. Like the last 20, 30 years have been pretty fucked. And it's been increasingly getting worse. So it is interesting that the precipice of when these actions and these things started to happen, and then the globalist and control and all that stuff that gets constantly brought up on the show. But let's get into Myra Hindley, this lovely, lovely lady. Even if you want, Aaron, while I'm going through some of this, maybe I don't know, see if you can bring up any images, anything else that you see maybe on Google, because I have a handful. But if you see anything of her like when she's younger and stuff, it'd be interesting to see. See, some of these are so blurry. They didn't look blurry when I was putting them up here, but that looks terrible. That's them because they got obsessed with
a lot of stuff.
I know.
Of them.
I know. I was looking like this is from like an archive, and I thought it looked better when I put it up there, but it's like super blurry of them using like they started like they got into a rifle club and got obsessed with like shotguns and rifles. They go out shooting. As soon as she did that, she bought a gun. So Myra Hindley was born in Crumpsall. That's a fun name. On Crumpsall on the 23rd of July, 1942. Raised in Gorton, then a working class area of Manchester. Her parents, Neely and Bob Hindley, alcoholic, it put in brackets, beat her regularly when she was a young child. The family was in poor condition, and Myra Hindley was forced to sleep in a single bed next to her parents' double. Oh my God! So he's like, "Hey Nelly, you want to get dirty tonight? All right, shut the fuck up, Myra." It's like she's like
just laying there listening to him clap cheeks.
Yeah, so fucked.
So gross. But so here again, right? Here's the descent into madness.
Yeah.
Also, I read up that house, a lot of the reason why they like slept in the room and stuff like that, I thought straight away, I was like, oh, it's like creepo mode.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there was definitely an aspect, I think, of creepo mode there. But her room, there was like a hole in the roof where there was like, it would just rain through. The floor had holes in it, was just falling apart. It was just like rotten with black mold. The entire house, like supposedly the house was like, what do you call it when it's like basically, essentially, it was like one step away from like being like a condemned house because it was just an absolute shithole.
The amount of houses that are like out there that could be repurposed for like homeless people is like crazy. But yeah, let's just keep bringing in more and more people.
Just while we're having a quick look here to see if we can find some images, if anybody listening right now can let me know, how are our audio levels compared to each other? I'm just interested to see.
Yeah, does everything sound clear, especially people on Rumble that are watching? Because we got
have I fucked up the audio again?
Yeah, it goes up and down. I don't know what the hell this is. I've seen this a couple times. That's not her. What is that?
I know, right? I was looking at that and I was like, weird. That's like strange.
So this is the house where they're murdering people and they're just like casually talking. Interesting. Yeah, there's like there's a lot of photos, not many, but like that's like look at. I don't know. I still can't see if she's sounds perfect. Sounds is sweet. Who gave Johnny Ranch? So crazy. It is weird, eh? Like there's some. I'm still like, is she attractive though? Because I can't say that she is.
Here's my other thing, right?
There she is when she's young.
People already know that she looks like the Blair Witch there. She looks like Mary Brown in the Blair Witch. Remember that scary bitch that lives in the trailer?
Yeah. It is weird. She doesn't look, especially as a kid, she's kind of frightening looking.
Here's a question for you though, right? And for everybody listening as well, actually. And I know it's hard to put yourself in these people's positions because, like, obviously the stuff that they do is just absolutely like, it's hard to even comprehend. But if you try for a second, do you think that somebody who's not already a little bit, swayed towards that behavior can be turned into that? Like from her point of view, somebody who's not into like, doing sexy stuff with kids or like creepy stuff like that. Do you really think that somebody can manipulate you that much to be like, oh, you know what would be really hot? Now I know you're not like attracted to like sexually assaulting kids or like making them nude or anything, but wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be cool? And then you going, oh yeah, that actually would really be cool.
It seems like, right, like that there already has to be something broken inside of you because you're taking advantage of it, because if you're already broken and you've went through this type of hell, right, of seeing things happen to you, you want to almost take out
Yeah. It's like
take out your frustrations on
Yeah.
like other people and stuff like that.
yeah, it's kind of like I don't know, like the bullied becoming the bully.
The modern hairstyle, she might look a bit cuter. I don't know, man. There's some photos where she just looks frightening to
We
me.
should Photoshop her with loads of different hairstyles and the people.
Till you find her attractive. It's so crazy. And like some of the makeup styles, just the 60s were a different time. You know, and like this is not like, think about it. She was born 2 years. No, they are absolute demons. Because I said, yeah, because you already have to have that in there. You know what I mean? Like it has to be in there already, and then someone can awaken that of like, all right, let's. I always feel like it's someone that has been abused, hurt people, right?
Oh yeah,
And
for
then
sure. For
and
sure,
then
yeah.
it's already in there, and then someone unlocks the key, right? And then they're
Surely
like,
to God, like, yeah, surely to God, though, there's, because obviously as we develop into the story, you start to find out that both of them just kind of blame each other, and like she blames everything on him, and she's like, oh well, it's nothing to do with me, it's him. And I'm like, I don't know if I believe that though. I believe like you have to already have it in your mind that you might be interested in being a sex creep.
yeah.
I don't think someone suggests that to you and you go, oh yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, because she's already got to kind of be that freak. But I don't know. You see this a lot of times in relationships too, like men or women. There is a possibility for them to like kind of take advantage of the situation, and maybe not like as far as this, but of like convince them, hey, yo, we should do this or we should do that, and it's like because they're so infatuated with that person, they'll like literally like kill for them in some regard, But I also believe that people are born inherently bad. It's possible. I just feel like things get ingrained into their head. I've always believed that some of these, it may seem a little far-fetched, but some of these serial killers and these people that commit these atrocities, something bad happens to them. Some of them don't. Like Ted Bundy, there was no really case of him being abused and stuff like that. And then it's like, do they get possessed? Like, is there some sort of like demonic force, parasitic leech force outside of a reality that people are more susceptible to, and then these things take hold of them in some regard, right? And then I think it's possible. I've thought that since I was a kid, and I started looking into true crime. Is like, man, are these people possessed by something? Because I've felt these dark forces. People may not believe me, but I have. They're there. They're there right now. They're in the room with you. They're watching you all the time.
I love how you looked straight into the camera as you said that.
So, but yeah, he beat her regularly. The family house is very poor condition. Their living situation deteriorated further when Myra's sister, Maureen, was born in August 1946. About a year later, Myra, then 5, was sent to live with her grandma nearby. It seemed like nobody could take care of the kids. Myra's father had served with the parachute regiment and had stationed in North Africa, Cyprus, and Italy during the Second World War. He had been known in the army as a hard man. He was very hard. And he expected his daughter to be equally tough. He taught her to fight and insisted that she stick up for herself. Myra was 8. A local boy scratched her cheek, drawing blood. She burst into tears and ran to her father, who threatened to leather her if she did not retaliate. Interestingly enough, I do think it is okay not to beat your kids. That's fucking crazy.
Interesting take here now. Tom's hot take, everybody.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of I think you should train your children to fight. I do think that is a good thing to like to like know how to like combat and fight and stand up for themselves in case, especially women, in case something does happen. Like obviously, like you always teach a chick, kick him in the balls and then run away. You know what I mean?
Like my kid does jiu-jitsu, and the other guys who coach the classes with me, their kids do jiu-jitsu, and like I'll always tell them, like, never get in a fight, but if you do get in a fight, beat the fuck out of whoever it is.
I shouldn't have gave Johnny powers. He has because during Jeremy's show there was like some freak just like going off, and people were like, "I don't know how to mod. I don't know how to do any of this stuff." And then so I gave Sarah and Johnny the ability to like mod people and shit or kick them out. And I'm like, dangerous power to give to people, you know.
Just no one left in the chat.
Yeah, it's like, thanks, Johnny. I'll be coming on their show at some point. They do a show called "Fuck Around and Find Out," so I'll have to jump on them their show sometime. But she so then Myra found the boy, knocked him to the ground with a series of punches. She's just fucking just ran out and started hammering him. And then, as she wrote later, at 8 years old, I'd score my first victory. Malcolm McKell, professor of forensic psychiatry at Cardiff University. Cardiff was a university had written that Myra's relationship with her father was brutal, that her father brutalized her. She was not only used to violence in the home, but rewarded for it outside of the home. When this happened at a young age, it can distort a person's reaction to such a situation in life. One of Myra's closest friends was 13-year-old boy Michael Higgins, who lived nearby. In 1957, he invited her to go swimming with friends at a local disused reservoir. But Myra Hindley instead went out somewhere else with another friend. Higgins drowned in the reservoir. Hindley, a good swimmer, was deeply upset and blamed herself. Oh yeah, I remember hearing about this. This like fucked her up. That if she was there,
that she would have been able to save him.
Yeah, and then it kind of that messed her up even more. You know what I mean? Because the more you know, what's up?
Which I guess, look, as a kid, I guess, is like a valid thing to assume that, like, of course, I would have been able to save him. But he was there with other kids, and I think 2 other boys actually jumped in and tried to save them, and he nearly drowned because it's that thing that you do. He actually nearly drowned them trying to like get out or whatever. So then they ended up having to like swim away and be like, I can't do anything. Like I can't get him out.
Is he just touching her tit? Look at
creepy guy.
He looks creepy.
That looks like my school uniform I used to have.
Really
scary.
It's so crazy because now the older I am and you know I'm gonna have a kid and stuff like that, I'd rather them go to Catholic school because it's a little more or like Christian school or private school. It's a little more like we hated that though. In public school, I was like, fuck, I would never want to wear a uniform. Like I can wear whatever the fuck I want.
Christian Brothers.
Maybe I should have went because I would wear, I've said this story before, but man, like shit that I used to wear and think I was cool.
You were going to ingest this fucking Teen Wolf.
Oh my God. No, like remember that story I told you about where I wore a whole blood outfit? I've always been into hip hop, right? And just like, and I'm like, think it's cool. And like, and then I showed up and I'm wearing like red khakis, a red like top, the whole khaki suit pretty much in red with like a white t-shirt, red hat. And then I showed up at the smoker's pit and I was just, this is why I don't care about what people say, especially over the internet and stuff. Cause I've built up this tolerance to being made fun of where my friends would just literally like, what the fuck are you wearing? And all made fun of me. And I just didn't care. The same way when I was emo and then I showed up after like my girlfriend at the time, gave me like put eyeliner on me and I was like wearing all this black. I'm like 13. I'm like 12. Okay. And I showed up and all my friends are skateboarding and they all just like literally fell on the ground laughing like on the grass. They're like, you look fucking stupid. And like, I just am so used to being like, just fucking destroyed by my friends.
My favorite bits every time that you do when you talk about these stories. I don't know what it is, but it's just how matter of fact you explain the stories.
Show up and I was like, and I remember Chelsea remembers when her sister dropped her off at my house because we did it fairly young, and I was like 15 or 16, probably 15 or 16, and I was wearing the whole blood outfit, and she was like, what? That's the guy, you know what I mean? And I'm like, wow. And I had my head shaved with like a fucking almost like a sidewalk. Like my cousin he was in a hip hop group, in a Christian hip hop group, weirdly, and he would shave my head and like it would look like a jail style. Like there was like the fucking cutout and stuff on the side of my head, and I'm like, oh man, things you do. That's why I really want to do that episode for Patreon. I was looking at older photos of myself. I'm gonna start posting some of them because there's
I have some absolutely dreadful, like, oh my god. And as you can imagine, right, I was one of the only kids back then that I obviously had family in New York. So like I would go to the States for 2 or 3 months of the summer, and I would come back with like do-rags and shit and try and wear them here, which was even further removed from reality. You can only imagine the amount of like, it's like that thing you said about like being put in the gay circle. We had this like gay alley thing where it was like if you went down and touched this like, red brick
Is it
wall.
old homeless guy? You suck his dick.
No, it was like in the school, but it was just like outside of the toilet. It wasn't even an alleyway, like it was just like a little kind of outdoor corridor thing with a red brick wall, and they were like,
Gay
would,
alley.
like, yeah, they would like push you out there and like kick you up the ass and stuff, and be like, "Gay, you touched the gay wall," and all this stuff. The amount of time that I spent down there.
Go dag a gay alley.
Like I was going to fucking school in
Harry Potter.
in early 2000s Ireland wearing fucking do-rags and shit and like fake jewelry,
Dude, my cousin bought me a bunch of fake jewelry and shit, like the one that used to do hip hop, and he has Jamaican blood in him, but he looks white as fuck. And he said when he used to do battle raps and stuff like that, or like he'd do hip hop freestyles, he's like all the black guys used to clap, but I used to say that I was Jamaican, and like they're like white Jamaicans, very Christian or whatever. But it's just such a funny different time. I remember before we get to the next thing, that I've said it before, that dance, we used to go like dances to pick up chicks, and even Jeremy on, he's like fucking picking up chicks at the mall when you're like 15. And I was like, yeah, it's just different times. I grew up fast, right? All my friends, like, it was mostly me because I already had sex at that time, where I was like, oh, and I was the one that was flirtatious and chicks knew of me. And so I would like, we go to the mall and we'd be like, oh, this girl's here or whatever. And we try to flirt with them. But like we go to like different towns dances at one point. We get the parents to drive us, and we went to like a little town that's like 20 minutes away, half an hour away. And we try to like pick up chicks in other towns. And there's one chick we're talking to over like MSN, and we're doing like webcam calls. And it was, me and Billy were just reminiscing on this on an episode that is not released yet about like a reptilian cult. And just because it was way back in the day in the MSN chat, we're reminiscing AOL. And then and then like we see her on camera or whatever, and she looks like a good looking blonde chick. She showed her tits and stuff, like me and my friends, but oh my god. And then we go to see her, and she's got like acne galore and looks like hideous. And then we end up hitting on these other chicks. And then my mom's like picks us up, and she's like, I found these at the corner store, whatever. She's like, when I was waiting for you guys, since you guys want to be gangsters so bad. And she threw do-rags at us. This is like these corner store do-rags.
Dude, I swear to God, like I hadn't a clue. Like I was going around Chinatown, at that age, thinking, oh, do-rags, that's a good thing. The only thing I will say though about all that stuff, and I feel like I kind of done the same, where like probably grew up maybe a little bit too fast, got like a little bit too ahead of myself. The only good thing though I find is then when you have a kid, it's like it's like seeing into the future. You can already see all those little things. I'm like, nope,
Yeah,
not doing that. Nope, fuck you. I know what comes next. Not happening.
Yeah,
Whereas like maybe if you were a little bit more, you see people like, and they just have no street smarts.
Mm-hmm.
And like I feel like now in the age we live in now, if you don't have street smarts years ago, you're gonna be like so fucked.
I know. You'll cut off your dick and you'll fucking put on a blue wig, and
that's what I mean. I think to not have to not have parents that are like clued in a bit is like really bad for kids from a lot of angles. Like, because like bullying can get like super out of hand, and if your parents are like out of touch with stuff, it's like worse, because they just have no idea of when to step in and be like, wait a second, there's a problem.
On one side, we have the most indoctrinated, brainwashed people that think men can be women on one side. And then there is the other side where we do have the most probably awake generation of parents to ever exist too. So it'll be an interesting future if they don't destroy us all. And like I had Dustin Nimoy on, he thinks the world's going to end in 2034. And I was like, that's fucking positive. Like, I don't mean to scare you, but you should fucking get on your knees and pray.
It's not soon enough.
So obviously, like, she sees this kid drown and it kind of disturbs her. She blames herself. She collected for a wreath in his funeral at St. Francis Monastery in Gordon Lane, where she had been baptized as a Catholic in 1942. It had a lasting effect on her. Myra's mother had agreed to her father's insistence that she be baptized as a Catholic, but not only on the condition that she not be sent to Catholic school, but her mother believed that all monks taught were catechism. I've never heard that word in my life before. She was increasingly drawn to the Catholic Church after she started a Ryder Brow secondary modern, and began taking instructions as a formal receptionist into the church soon after Higgins' funeral. She took the confirmation name of Victoria, and received her first communion in November 1958. That's fucking weird. I don't know what it's meaning by like started this secondary whatever. Hindley's first job was a junior clerk at a local electrician engineering firm. She ran errands, made tea. It's all about the tea, and typed. And she was well liked. That when she lost her first week's wage packet, the other girls took up a collection to replace it. Nobody would do that nowadays. At 17, she became engaged after a short courtship, but called it off several months later after deciding the young man was immature and unable to provide her with the life that she wanted. She took weekly judo lessons at the local school and found partners reluctant to train with her because she often slow to release her grip. Yo, she was kind of a badass. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, there's a scary thought that she was like training judo and you know what? I've definitely seen it. I'm not saying that I've trained with any Myra Hindleys or anything like that, but there's definitely an aspect of like, you know, I've come across people throughout the years of training that have been like, I don't want to train with you because you always fucking hurt me. It's not even about like you're better than me or you beat me. It's like, no, you always do stupid shit. Like when it's time to let go, you always have to get that last like 5 seconds. And I'm like, I really don't want to end up with like life-changing injuries or like brain damage. Thank you.
That's why sparring's good and shit like that. I want to get into kickboxing and shit. You know, at some point when my life is not so goddamn busy. So support the show so I can live off this. In January 1961, the 18-year-old Hindley joined Millwards as a typist. She became infatuated with Ian Brady despite learning that he had a criminal record. When I was young and I had a criminal record, chicks found that hot. I heard that numerous times. They were like, "Ew, he's a badass," or he's like, and I'm like, "No, I'm just traumatized." But I put on a big tough guy look. But it's just like chicks thought I was like attractive.
Yeah, when like you're kind of seen as that, and it's like, bitch, I'm on the road to nowhere.
Yeah, I know. Like,
you're coming with me for the next 2 weeks.
I also know you're from a broken home, so I'm going to take advantage of that.
Yes. In 2 weeks' time, I'm going to find someone else to do it.
Yes, literally. That's so fun. It's so funny how we be for the fans that don't know, obviously, like me and Aaron became like best friends, and he's in Ireland, and we think the same. We grew up the same. We have like the same almost life experiences in some regard, in a lot of different avenues. So it's just funny.
It is actually like fucking bizarre, though.
Yeah,
it's actually bizarre.
So she began a diary, although she had dates with other men. Some of the entries detailed her fascination with him, to whom she eventually spoke for the first time on 27th of July. Over the next few months, she continued making entries. I fucking love Ian. He's so cute. But grew increasingly disillusioned with him until the 22nd of December when Brady asked her on a date to the cinema. What do you think they saw?
I did actually see something. I've seen it somewhere where it said what they saw, but I can't remember. But also, just before we move on from that, this will actually show you that she was definitely mad before they got into anything, because you can find a lot of her diary entries or supposed diary entries. And she has stuff in it about, you know, oh, he's the first man that I've known that doesn't have grease under his nails and stuff like this, right? And she's like, he has clean hands and he doesn't have like scummy fingernails and stuff. And then in like the next entry, she's like, he's a scruffy, scummy bastard. Like he's like
I love it.
a filthy tramp. And then she
Mm.
goes back to like being like, oh no, he's this and he's that and he's amazing. So you can
She's
definitely
fucking
see
psychotic.
she's psychotic as well. Like,
I would love to read. Like, I love true crime, and I wish I had more time to read about this stuff because I like reading about conspiracies and the world's coming to an end. But I would love to read some of those like diary entries. Like, if there was a book that was published of all of them, I'd probably read all of them. Because that shit just fascinates me. I should read listen to like Charles Manson talk. I want to do Charles Manson at the beginning of the show. Eventually we will get to it, but I'm planning on doing a big deep dive. That'll be a long time. But
how many episodes are you on? Do you know?
Of actual submitted like episodes?
Yeah, like technically, are you on like 400, 500, 300, 200, 100? Like,
so I think. As far as I know, so we're at like not counting what we've done that have not been put on audio, we're like at like 2. Let me see. We're at fucking stupid. Oh, come get your cozy shit at DoorDash. 288 episodes on audio, okay? But that doesn't count like the shit. There's done stuff that haven't released. Dude, there is about probably 120 episodes that have been since X'd from the show since the conception and starting of the show in 2018. It is crazy. And there's tons that no one will ever hear from, but that's why I always tell people like the Patreon, you'll find some of these older episodes, some of these really funny, but you can tell that we're just drinking. And like Billy and me talk about, we used to drink a half a 26 for free even starting. We would make sure that we were drunk a little bit before we started because it would just like loosen up the conversation, and we would drink beforehand and then be like, this is great, record. And then like fucking halfway through, we're like sloshed. So it was such you gotta learn, you know what I mean?
I was just trying to say, like, you should make like the Charles Manson one, like I don't know, like the 300th episode or something like that.
Yeah. At some point, it might be the 400s at this fucking rate that we're going because there's so many things that we need to cover. It's going to be long, and I would hope for all of us to come together for episodes more often. So the film that they say they saw was they state that the film was Judgment Day at Nuremberg, but Hindley recalled as Kings of Kings. So they're like, yo, let's go watch the Nuremberg trials. It's so stupid. But their dates followed a regular pattern: a trip to the cinema, usually to watch an X-rated film, then back to Hindley's house to drink German wine. He's like, yes, we need to. I only drink German wine because I slowly turn into a Nazi after. I've never had German wine. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how good it is. I don't know if it's any good at all. I bet you would be very strong and very anti-Semitic, right? You just you drink it, you start yelling out fucking Jewish slurs.
I think he would make her drink that as well, and he'd have her like read passages out from books and stuff, but he'd make her read it aloud.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's just a really weird date. Like, imagine doing that to somebody. Like, even if you were really into something, imagine like bringing a girl to your house and being like, right, here's that book. You're going to read this for me while I drink and stare at you.
Yeah, so weird. Can you read Mein Kampf for me? And he's like sitting there sipping his German wine.
How weird! Like, and afterwards, you're gonna stick a candle up my ass and I'm gonna punch it.
Yeah. Once I'm wasted, just please make sure it's lit on fire first.
So scary. Like,
he's like those little candle hat things that you like put out. He just uses his ass. He's like,
oh jeez.
Fucking, because he was a sadist and stuff. He kind of liked pain. Brady also gave her reading material, and the pair spent their work lunch breaks reading aloud to each other, accounting of Nazi atrocities. Did you hear what Himmler did? It's like Hindley began to.
Oh, sorry, not to cut you off, but nobody else around them. Like, wait, hold on a second, right? So you're taking your lunch break in work, and can you imagine at any point being in work, taking your lunch break? And I don't know, two people, a man and a woman that also work in the same place you do, are outside having lunch, reading all this crazy shit out loud, like throwing up salutes and stuff. Would you not be like, maybe there's something like a bit?
I think people were more open to the idea that what they were told was not very accurate. Maybe, or would be the other way around, where they were like, what the fuck are you reading? Churchill was a saint. You know what I mean? So like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
that is, it could be what happens most times is people see it and go, oh, what the fuck they're doing. Let me just look this way and pretend I don't know what's going on.
I know, so weird. Hindley began to emulate the ideal of Aryan perfection, bleaching her hair blonde and applying thick crimson lipstick. She expressed concerns about some aspects of Brady's character in a letter to a childhood friend. She mentioned the incident where she had been drugged by Brady, but also wrote of her obsession with him. A few months later, she asked her friend to destroy the letter. In her 30,000 word plea for parole, written in 1978 and 1979, and submitted to the Home Secretary Merlin Rees, Hindley said, "Within a few months, he had convinced me that there was no God at all, and he could have told me that the earth was flat, and the moon was made of green cheese, and the sun rose in the west, and I would have believed him. Such was his powers of persuasion."
Weird, like she just. But again, that shows you like she was obviously just mentally ill.
I know.
And then
So,
obsessed with him for some reason, which I don't
she
get.
could have
either.
told me the earth was flat. And it's like, lady, maybe it is. I'm just kidding. I don't know what it is. It's a simulation in my eyes. It's like, I don't know. There's people who have compelling arguments on both sides. And those guys went to the Antarctica and they proved that it was not recently. And then people are like, it's not real. It's shills. The shills. They got exposed or whatever. So it's stupid. Hindley.
Who
What?
did she just give me a sec here, because I definitely read something about this. She tried to make herself look like somebody.
Okay.
You
I'll
know,
keep
you
going with
said
this.
about
Try to look it up.
the
Well,
bleach blonde hair.
some Aryan woman. There's like
Yeah.
they were super into the Vril and stuff, which we'll get to.
Oh,
That
there we
shit's so
go.
crazy.
She deliberately styled herself to resemble Nazi figures, particularly Irma, Grese. How would you pronounce that?
Irma, Grese.
Or ESE. Grisly. Who was
Oh,
a notorious concentration camp guard in Auschwitz.
she looks like a stern lady.
So this is who she was trying to. So she would wear skirts like that. She would wear a leather jacket sometimes because she saw pictures of her wearing a leather jacket.
Yeah.
So
She looks like a tough broad.
yeah. So right, here's some facts about her. Irma was known as the hyena of Auschwitz and was one of the most infamous female SS officers. Hindley, who was deeply influenced by Ian Brady's obsession with Nazi Germany, dyed her hair blonde and styled it in a manner similar to Irma. Some who knew Hindley believed her cold and emotionless demeanor was modeled after Irma also. She was originally a natural brunette, but bleached her hair platinum blonde under Brady's influence. In photographs, especially her infamous mugshot, she appears with a harsh, slicked back blonde hairstyle, making her look more severe and intimidating. This calculated transformation was likely meant to appeal to Brady's sadistic and Nazi-obsessed fantasies. Her piercing stare, bleached hair, and blank expression became her symbol of her remorselessness. Despite later attempts to soften her image in prison, she could never escape the haunting legacy of how she tried to replicate Irma.
You're gonna love me, but I'm gonna piss my pants. Too much drugs. So what?
Sure.
Okay, so you can just fanciful the audience.
Okay.
Okay, I'll give 2 seconds.
Sure. I'm actually right. This is interesting then, because this works out perfect. I can bring something up right now. No, I can't, because fucking Tom probably doesn't have this set up for me. Let me see if I can do this. Nope. Quick question again, everybody. When I'm talking, does my voice kind of go in and out of like up and down? I don't know. Sometimes I feel like that my voice sounds really good, and then sometimes I do this and it doesn't sound so good. I don't know if that's something that only I'm noticing. But yeah, how does everyone feel so far about this case? You think it's just a case of like two people who were just sick in the head have come across each other, or do you think one was worse than the other? As in, do you think Ian was, I guess, the I don't know, the mastermind behind it all? Because obviously, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the story, but Myra, when it all goes to shit, she attempts to blame him for absolutely everything. And that's when he starts to kind of talk a little bit more, because she says, she wasn't present for a lot of the crimes and all that shit, which is obviously, I think personally, complete bullshit. But yeah,
What were you
uh,
talking about?
seems like a match to me. I was actually going to bring something up, but then I can't bring it up. You have to. Um,
Oh, I
I
see.
found some photographs there. I don't know what this is. So, rarely seen photographs taken by Ian Brady of Myra Hindley, her dogs Lassie and Puppet, and her sister Maureen, which is interesting.
Yeah.
They're from a picnic somewhere in the Peak District.
I like that. I think it was like matches and gasoline. They would found someone to ignite them either way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's probably like the best way to explain it, really. I was just
Yeah.
asking people, what did they think? Do they feel like he was the mastermind, or do they think they were as bad as each other, or how did everybody kind of feel about the whole thing?
Luckily, the audio audience won't fucking hear about that stuff. It's hard to tell. Like I think even like with this scary chick, I think that despite what people want to say and claim today, I think the Nazis did do some horrible shit. But I do think that there is you can't say it in Canada or you'll be put in jail. But I think that people should be questioning the things that did happen because the numbers don't add up. The idea of the door being wooden in the essential, I can't even talk about it. Like, look, this guy said the Holocaust didn't happen. And I'm like, I'm not saying that, okay? But I'm just saying there's some questions that I have that should be answered. They never are because you're not allowed to question it, which is crazy. It's like, no, we don't control the world, but if you question anything about what we say, you're anti-Semitic, even though we're not Semitic because we're not even from there. It's like fucking... So Hindley began to change her appearance, further wearing clothing, as you said, such high boots, short skirts, and leather jackets, and two became less sociable to their colleagues. The couples were regulars at the library, borrowing books on philosophy as well as crime and torture. It's interesting because there's this thing of being fascinated by it. And then, yes, Cecil says join the chat. It's interesting of being like fascinated by it, and then like where it becomes like, oh, I want to do this. I've always been fascinated by true crime. It's never been something I wanted to do. I don't want to hurt anybody. Yeah. If I don't have to, I don't want to hurt anybody. If someone tries to hurt me, I'll hurt you back. But like realistically, like I've never been like, yeah, this sounds. I think I want to try that.
That's also, though, I think the number one thing to somebody who's really good at manipulating you. It's like, they take you away from your friends, but they make you feel like it's your own choice. So they isolate you from everybody. But it's like, well, I didn't tell you not to have any friends or not to go see your family. You kind of chose to do that.
How many times does this happen though in relationships too? But I will say this for all the ladies out there: if you have friends that are males, they want to fuck you. That's most times, unless you're like married and it's like a couple friend and all that stuff. There's this, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's never the case. Like, even like he's such a nice guy, especially like nerdy. Like you think of all those movies where like the nerdy guy is like wanting to get with her, but she just sees him as a friend. Like it often doesn't work out. And there's cases when you get older, but especially in your early 20s, teenagers, like there's usually a motive behind it on either side, usually more the male side. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. And that's coming from a male perspective as well. Like 9 times out of 10, that's fucking garbage and it's a lie. Yeah. And also, if you have friends that are chicks that are always single, like chronically single, and they're doing that thing going like, he's such a bad guy. Oh my God, get away from him. You got to be sure as well, we're not going to be too impressed when you want to hang out with them all the time.
Yeah, and then it's just when they're like when the guy's like, tell me all your problems, tell me about how much you hate. Sorry, I was gonna use Johnny's name. I was like, how much you hate Johnny. Johnny's an asshole, you know what I mean? And then he like, and then this guy Ian or whatever his name is just like, come here, come with me. And you see this in movies that they've made fun of this stuff, right? They also read works by Jesus. Marquis say Desad. Yeah, not Jesus. Marquis say I can't remember how to pronounce this. And then I know this guy's name. Someone's gonna make fun of me, but the Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I can't remember how to spell his name. Okay, Johnny's like, I'm an asshole. I mean, obviously, I am an asshole. It's fair. Although Hindley was not qualified driver, everyone knows, man. I've had a couple. I've been day drinking, so she passed on her test on November 7th. Oh, a day before my birthday, 1963, after failing 3 times. And then she often hired a van, in which the couple planned bank robbery. So they had this idea where they wanted to do a bank robbery. Hindley befriended the president of Chiddle Rifle Club. Chiddle, I'll call it that. It's a fun name. And on several occasions visited 2 local shooting ranges. Brady and Hindley's plans for robbery came to nothing because they were talking about it and then it just never happened. But they became interested in photography. Brady already owned a box brownie. Don't know what that is, which he used to take photographs of a Hindley and her dog, Puppet. That seems like a Nazi name for a dog. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, Puppet.
That was that dog we just had up.
Yeah, so weird. Yeah, I feel like there's this dog.
They tried their hand at porn.
Sure, they did. Everyone did at the time, right?
Yeah, no, they did. I think they took like lots of nudie, sexy pictures doing stuff to each other and then tried to sell them at one point, but I don't think that went very well.
Do you know what a stag party is?
Do I know what a stag party is?
Yeah.
Okay,
because I was like, it was very fun because it's like the last person I was Jeremy. We were talking about that. He's like, that's what a stag party is, and I was like, yeah. Before porn was legal, men used to be like, look, I got this DVD. No, it would be like a projector, like a slide or whatever. How they'd use that, and then they would show, and they'd be like, look at this, fucking John Holmes film or whatever it was. And it would just be a bunch of dudes in the garage drinking beer, watching porn together. He's like, is that what that means? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, so, because before it was like legal, because we covered like John Holmes and the fucking Wonderland murders. And it's just like a different time where it became so popular. And now it's taking hold of our society, but yeah, it was illegal for a long time. So guys would be like, come over to my stag party, we're going to get some beers and we're all going to sit around and boners and watch some fucking. Ugh. I know, so strange.
Like a good old time.
Yeah, dudes watching porn together is gay. Yeah, because it's like, why can't you just do that on your own, man? It's like, in your own privacy. It's different times. Now it's so accessible. It's fucking weird. Where before you had to like get like a magazine or like, I remember when I was 18, my dad bought me one for the first time. And I was like, this is cool, whatever, Playboy. And then I cut out all the pictures and then put it all on a wall in the room I used to hang out in. And then my mom one day got very angry. I came home and it was all gone. She ripped them all down. And I was like, well, I probably would have done the same thing. Not gonna lie. So they'd visit the shooting ranges. It's always a fun time. And Brady and Myra plans for robbery came to nothing. They're interested in photography. They would upgrade to a more sophisticated model, but also purchase lights and a dark room equipment. They were like obsessed with it. The pair took photographs of each other for that time, but it would have been a new thing, right? It would have been interesting to be like, look at this. Like I can imprint you into a photograph forever. We have all of this technology now where everything you say is just like, is there forever. You know what I mean? So it is such a different time to be like, you can capture these moments. And the pair took photographs of each other at the time that would have been considered explicit. For Hindley, this demonstrated a marked change from her early, more shy and prudish nature. Hindley claimed that Brady began to talk about committing the perfect murder in July 1963, and after spoke to her about Meyer Levy's Compulsion, published a novel in 1956 and adopted it for the cinema in 1957. Sounds like a Jew. The story tells the account for Leopold and Liebon's case, 2 young men from a well-to-do families who attempted to commit the perfect murder of a 12-year-old boy and escape the death penalty because of their age. By June 1963, Brady had moved in with Hindley at her grandmother's house in Bannock Street on July 12th, 1963. The two murdered their first victim, Pauline Reade. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing these wrong for the victims. 12-year-old who had attended the school with Hindley's younger sister, Maureen, also had been in a short relationship with David Smith, a local boy with the 3 criminal convictions for minor crimes. Police found no one had seen Pauline before her disappearance. Although the 15-year-old Smith was questioned by the police, he was cleared of any involvement in her death. The next victim was Johnny Kilbride. That's a fun name. Sounds like an Irish name, not gonna lie. Kilbride?
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah.
16 was killed on November 23rd, 1963. A huge search was undertaken with 700 statements taken. That's crazy. 700 statements were taken and 500 missing posters were printed. That's wild too. 8 days after he failed to return home, 2,000 volunteers scored waste grounds and these derelict buildings to try to search for him. And then Myra Hindley hired a vehicle. It's also weird, the word hired. She rented a vehicle, a week later after John Kilbride went missing. And again on the 21st December 1963, apparently to make sure the burial sites had not been disturbed. It's interesting because it just ramps up. As soon as they start killing, it's just like boom, 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 boom. Like they're like, oh, we can do this as soon as they do the first one. And they were like assaulting them, doing very disgusting acts to them in a lot of ways. And then it went from
would it be bad for me to like explain?
No, go ahead. I would like to know.
No,
I out of all this, when we do true crime, as much as it's disturbing to people, it's easier to talk about the older cases. I do like to go into grandiose detail about what happens because a lot of people shy away from that. But we're the idea of we're the show that's not for the easily offended or faint of heart. So I like getting into that stuff. Even when people talk about it's a famous case we covered, but when we did talk about the toy box killer, we're like, let's just talk about the whole thing. You know what I mean? Let's just dive into the whole aspect of it.
Yeah,
so what did you read about it?
So look, there's a quick Google search and a little bit of time, you'll find multiple different, I suppose, versions of the story because he tells it one way, she tells it another way.
Yeah.
And I feel like the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, but like with Pauline Reade, for example, again, it's a really weird thing. Like they had the van and Myra saw Pauline walking alone, stopped off for a ride. Then when she got in, she claimed that she had lost a glove on the moors. This became their thing. They used to use this all the time, that Myra had lost one of her gloves and they used to ask the people to help them to find it. There's like this.
Oh yeah, I actually did have this. Yeah, I'm really
weird. Like, I don't even know. Like that's such a fucking odd thing to do, but okay.
But that's what they did too with like Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. They're like, we have this map pulled out. They're like, I don't know where to go.
Like saying like a glove, like it's such a weird. Like it's like I lost one glove. Hey, want to come with me to find my one glove out in the moors miles away? It's like, why would I do that again? But yeah, they brought her out there and she said that Brady was following behind them in a separate car the entire time. Then according to her, when they got there, she stayed in a van and Hindley or Brady told her park the van somewhere like away, whatever. So while she was doing that, she says that Ian was the one then who had sexually assaulted her, beaten her, and then slashed her throat. And then supposedly
nearly decapitated her. Supposedly.
Yeah, like it nearly completely like severed
by 2 cuts to the throat, including a 4-inch incision across her voice box, inflicted her with considerable force.
And supposedly sexually assaulted her again after that.
Just so fucked, man. And be getting off on that shit is like
Now,
crazy to me.
my only question with that, so her remains weren't discovered until 1987 when Hindley attempted to prove her remorse and she led investigators to the location. Now, my only question about that is Hindley was able to recount that in detail while she was in a van driving the opposite direction. So
Yeah.
that's a very strange thing to know when you weren't there. Now, I'm not defending him either. Like, he's obviously scum as well, but I just personally think both of them were there.
100%.
Because he said that, I think he said that that's kind of what happened, but he said she was there and she was like the one taking her clothes off and stuff.
Yeah, because when Hindley asked Brady whether he assaulted Pauline Reed, Brady said, "Of course I did. Of course I did."
Yeah, he did, and he said that like when they used to be out anywhere and get anything, she
Mhm.
used to be the one to get it. So like if they were at a bar, she was the one that would go up and get the drinks. She's the one that would go get the cigarettes. If they were to take a trip, she would go and get the tickets. She would organize everything. Now he would pay for everything. He was happy to pay for everything, but he just didn't see it as his place to actually do anything. He was like, I tell her, I give her the money, she does it.
Yeah.
She brings it back to me. I don't do it. And he said it was kind of the same to a degree, like with the murders and stuff. Like, if okay, I'm gonna like sexually assault her now, take her clothes off. And
Yeah,
then she
it's
would take her clothes off.
yeah, it's so crazy because Hindley stayed with Pauline while Brady retrieved a spade he had hidden nearby on a previous visit, and then they returned the van while Brady buried the little girl. In Brady's account, Hindley was not only present for the attack but participated. And this is a time when they were like, Maureen Hindley married David Smith on the 5th of August, 1964. The marriage was hastily arranged and performed at a register office. None of Hindley's relatives attended. Myra didn't approve of the marriage, and her mother was too embarrassed. Maureen was 7 months pregnant, and the newlyweds moved into Smith's father's house. The next day, Brady suggested the four take a day trip to Windmere, the first time Brady and Smith had met properly, and Brady was apparently impressed by Smith's demeanor. And the two talked about society and the distribution of wealth and possibly robbing a bank. And they had this idea the whole time of trying to rob banks. And then this is what led eventually into they just didn't rob a bank and they went into the murder of Pauline.
I think after
crazy.
her as well, I think he might have said, again, I don't know if he like agreed with any of this, but this is coming from Hindley's POV of the whole thing. She said that after that they had a conversation about what was it she said he said that after Pauline, because she fought back so much
Mhm.
and she kind of knew well in advance what was happening, that he
Yeah.
thought it might be a better idea to go younger. Because I think she was 16, right? So he was like, nah, 16 is like too much hard work.
She
He's
looks like she's like 10.
I know, yeah. 16, I think she was. And he was like, nah, that's too much like hard work. I think we need to go younger because that's not working for me. That was
It's
too much
always disturbing to look at the photos of the kids. You know what I
I know,
mean?
yeah.
It's
Imagine
such a
saying that though, as like, imagine turning around after that and being like, yeah, I really think we need to
too
go
much
much
work.
younger because like that was too much like hard work. She put up too much of a fight. I didn't really like that.
It's so crazy too, because like I've been so I would say desensitized by talking about this stuff too. Like like our thing is classified on audio platforms as comedy and true crime. Because I've always been fascinated with true crime, and it does relate to some of these like conspiracy stuff of like people going missing and the connections to that. But it's always something that's always like been interesting to me of like how can people like do this and to analyze it. And I feel like I have a thick enough skin, if that's the way I want to put it, or like my brain's already been traumatized so many times. So I'm able to like look at this stuff and be like, and objectively try to understand what was happening and dive into the deeper aspects of this stuff without it affecting me. Because a lot of people would be affected by talking about this stuff. But even me and Billy talked about this. It becomes more serious. And I feel like It's weird. We did Richard Ramirez, and literally we were laughing through the whole two-parters that we did on him, joking about how fucked up he was and stuff, and being able to, as you always say, if you're not laughing, you're crying, and trying to analyze the situation. But it is when we did what's that guy's name that murdered his kids, very famous case recently, and he put them in like what's gonna bug me. And we covered that, and Billy's like, it's not so fun to talk about it when it's like recent. The guy like left his wife or killed his wife and his daughter for like Watts. We're not Watts.
It is, isn't it? No,
it's a philosopher. His name is Watts. The Watts family murders.
It's not Chris Watts, is it?
Maybe family.
I know the guy you're talking about, the guy with the kind of shaved head.
Colorado man's Watts family murders. Yes. Family. Yeah. Crazy. Killed 4 people, including an unborn child, which is
and how he managed to like ram them down into that thing.
Yeah, dude. And when me and Billy were talking, this is years ago at this point, when we talked about it just after it kind of happened. And even Billy's like, I can joke about like Jeffrey Dahmer and stuff like that, but this is like too serious. And I was like, yeah, it is. And then there was people who were like that. There was one fan that was like, more, do another part on it. And I was like, no, we're not doing this. And it is like some of the episodes we've done are like, this is like legit sad. So like John Kilbright, in the early morning evening of the 23rd of November, 1963, at a market in Ashton under Underleen, Brady and Hindley offered a 12-year-old John Kilbright a lift home, saying his parents might worry that he was out so late. They also promised him a bottle of sherry at fucking 12. Once Kilbride was inside Hindley's hired Ford, so weird. That's just a weird rented Ford, I would say. Brady said that they would have made a detour to their home for the sherry. En route, he suggested another detour, this time to search for a glove. It's like, what are we? Are we OJ?
It's such a weird thing, but a little bit more backstory in that. So John at the time was 12.
Yeah, Chris Watts, yeah.
Supposedly, him and his friends had been at the movies, I think, and after like buying whatever at the movies, they had no money left, so they went to the market. And supposedly back then, you could just like show up and you would get paid like little tips if you helped out, like, people working on the markets. You might say like, "Oh, I'll carry all your fucking stock for you, or I'll clean up, or I'll do this, or I'll get rid of your garbage, or whatever." And they'd give you like, I don't know, fucking pennies, and be like, "Yeah, go away."
Yeah.
That's what they were doing, and the market was huge, supposedly. And they were like, right, let's all just split up and try and get like different places or whatever. And this is where Ian seen him, and he approached him and he was like, "Oh, it's very late for like such a young, good-looking boy like you to be out. Your parents will worry." Now, instantly, I don't know what it was like back then, like, but instantly, I'm like, "Whoa, creepo mode." Like, who says that?
I don't know if they, and like, look at the kid. I hate to pick on the victim, but John Kilbride is the one next to Pauline on the end. And he kind of looks like a mischievous kid. You know what I mean? Like his facial expressions.
I was gonna say something, but I need to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. It's hard because it's a victim, obviously, of these crimes. It's interesting. It is kind of chilling to look at these kids that never got to grow up and exist as like adult human beings and make their own mistakes and go through their own lives and get married and because of these fucking sickos,
Now again, the story of this again, you see, is so he got in the car. Hindley drove towards the moors while Brady sat in the back.
Mm-hmm.
When they arrived, Brady took John away, telling Hindley to wait in the car. Now, that's obviously told from Hindley's perspective.
Yes,
again.
Yeah.
So we never really get too much about his perspective.
Of course, right? It's always like, oh, the woman's perspective.
John was supposedly sexually assaulted, strangled with a piece of string, and buried on the moors.
See, and I heard that he was they assaulted him and then tried to slit his throat with a 6-inch serrated blade before strangling him with the shoelace or string. That's so That's crazy. A serrated blade is like a bread knife. I was a chef, you get your serrated blades out for like cutting up the bread, or certain like tomatoes are easier for anyone that's interested in cooking. It's easier to cut up like a full tomato with a serrated blade because you're able to cut through it and get better slices, and it doesn't squish it into like a, you know what I mean? So like they're trying to cut the kid's throat with that shit, and they're like, it's not working. Shoelace.
I cut my finger before with one of those, and like I had to get stitches, and like I didn't even realize at first it looked like a paper cut.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's weird. It just looks like a line. And then like I touched it for a second, and I was like, oh, there's a little bit of blood, and I didn't think anything of it. And I looked down, and there's like blood like all down by my foot, and I was like, oh, that's bleeding an awful lot. And then I just barely pull on the skin, and I'm like, that's my bone. Great.
Oh, that's fucked.
So
Yeah.
it's like that's how easy. So I can't
It is,
imagine
dude.
slashing somebody's throat.
A child's throat. I've cut my it doesn't, you can't see it anymore, but I cut my tip of my thumb almost off being a chef. I cut my hand so many times. Like you're like in a rush, you're doing things. And then I just remember going to the hospital. The guy's like, the doctor's trying to like sew the two skin flaps back together. And I was like, that's cool. I have a photo somewhere on my Instagram. And it's like, you can clearly see like half my thumb is like gone. And they're like, I remember my chef being like, he wasn't there that day or something. He's like, whoa, nice finger, man. Like, thanks, dude. But yeah, they strangled him with a shoelace. And then we have Keith Bennett. Early morning in the 16th June 1964, Hindley asked the 12-year-old Keith Bennett, who was on his way to his grandmother's house in Longsight, Manchester, for his help unloading some boxes into her mini pickup. After which she drove him home. Brady was in the back of the van. She drove to a lay-by on Saddleworth Moor, and Brady went off with Bennett, supposedly looking for a lost glove again. It's like my glove. It's very cold, and it's like what time of year? This is like June.
No, look, right. I know this is the 60s, right? No, I don't know, but like,
I feel bad. That little boy, Keith Bennett, looks like just like a nice little nerdy boy.
Yeah, look, and I get it. Like they're targeting fucking kids, like, but it's just such an awful thing that like it was kind of that easy in one sense.
I know.
All you had to do was say, like, yeah, help me get my glove. Like, even if it was something like, you'd hear of some of these stories, they might pull up to them and be like, oh, your dad told me to come and get you. You have to like go home. I have to bring you home now, or something like that. And like trick them that way into getting in it. But it just seems like a really obscure way to pull up to a random kid and be like, hello, we need to go find my glove. Come on.
yeah, I know. And there was no like this idea of like stranger danger. I feel like at least at this point, but like it was everywhere. I felt like, because it was more open. I think it's done more behind the scenes and stuff like that nowadays. But like back then, it was just like nobody talked about it. There's so many stories of this stuff, right? Of people getting molested, touched, or whatever, and then the family covers it up. Nobody wants to talk about it. They'll be shunned. People don't go report anything because the society will shun them in some regard, which is wrong, right? And you saw this all the time back then, where it was almost like it was way easier. Like Billy always made that joke where he's like, if I was around at this time, he's like, easy it'd be to just kill somebody, like in like the 1800s. Like if you really wanted to, and just if you were just kind of intelligent, of like, all right, well, I'll do it at this spot in this place, and then I'll get rid of him in this regard. You know what I mean? And it's crazy because it just seemed like so easy back then. Of like, here, come with me this way, boy. I got
go on a mission to find my glove, and the kid would just go, sure thing. That sounds like a great idea.
I really want to talk about
the weird chick from Mars Attacks. It's an alien that she does that weird walk.
Yeah, just like floating with her fucking. Yeah. Oh, like Myra Hindley. Oh, can we bring that up? That's so funny. That movie. There you go, man. Like we keep trying to figure out like stuff to do for your show.
Friend.
Yeah, like that's a horror movie though.
Yeah, you could call that a horror movie though, couldn't you?
It's freaky. That whole movie freaked me out. It's so off topic, but like because of this lady, I just put up Mars Attacks chick. Sorry, I'm very sexist. And it like she scared me when she bites off what's his name's finger. Yeah, it's very 60s vibes. Yeah.
Or she's like chewing the chewing gum.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, that's I watched that movie pretty young, and legitimately that scared me. I'm not
Same.
gonna lie.
Yeah, it used to freak me out.
Yeah, and yeah, like not gonna lie, it kind of looks similar.
I'm telling you. If you
Like-
and it's even worse if you actually watch the movie. You're like, wow, that's the very same.
Yeah, weird, man. So funny. There's so many things I'm like, oh, we could do on your show. For everyone that's watching this after now, here's an audio. Definitely go check out Class Horrorcast. We're on all podcast platforms. You like horror movies? Yeah, it's so fun to. It's not as serious as this stuff where we're able to kind of like this is like dark shit. And we haven't touched true crime in a while, which I always kind of weirdly excites me because it is such a weird thing to kind of like. It's perplexing. You got to analyze it. It's a weird thing. So yeah, and then. And you're looking for the lost glove. After 3 minutes, returned alone. Brady returned alone, carrying the spade he had hidden there earlier. So it's obviously way premeditated. They're like hiding stuff. Okay, we're going to take them there. This is our spot. This is where we romantically kill children together. And then in response to Hindley's questions, he said that he had sexually assaulted Bennett. Yeah. And then strangled him with a piece of string. Now, Leslie and Downey. Brady visited
before you move on to that
Yeah.
one, that's another one again where she said, oh yeah, Brady took Keith off into the darkness. I stayed in the car. I didn't witness the murder. I asked him afterwards. He told me that he sexually assaulted him and strangled him.
Mhm.
And so basically implying that once again she had nothing to do with it.
Do you want to pull up the transcript maybe before we get into this, because this is fucked up. This is like, I'm gonna zoom in. So do you have like a woman voice on your thing for like a high voice? Like, you know what I mean, on your soundboard? Here, I'll carry on with this a little bit. So they visited the fairgrounds December 26, December 1964. And it was that 10-year-old boy, Leslie Ann Downey, was apparently, I thought it was a girl, but I guess Leslie is a boy name too. Apparently alone. They approached her, so it is a girl. And deliberately dropped some shopping that they were carrying. Oh, excuse me. It's like a movie, man. Like, let me trip. Oh, sorry. You know what I mean? What's up, everybody in the chat? Appreciate you guys watching. Like, subscribe, share. And then they're like, oh, like fucking falling. And they're like, help me pick up my fruit. You know what I mean? And then it's like, get in the van. It's so fucked. And so they're taking and then at shopping, asked them to help her take the packages to her car, then to her home. And to me, I think you're kind of right of like, these kids are this stupid. You know what I mean? They're like, all these kids are like just going along. How did parents not be like, yeah, don't, but I don't know. There was
Look, I know it's a different time, and maybe
there's more trust in your neighbors and your people. Like there wasn't Indians everywhere sexually assaulting people constantly, or like Muslims or whatever, or all these other foreigners. But like there were still people doing it enough where people should have been talking to their
I would
kids.
just imagine at any point in history, like there'll be some sort of like, yeah, well, okay, obviously don't go around with strangers, like, and especially. Like I said, look, I can understand sometimes you hear of some of these stories and like the attackers use things like, oh, your parents sent me to get you because you need to go home right away. And maybe the kids seeing them as an adult would be like, oh,
yeah,
of course, yeah, that makes sense. That my parents something must be going on. I better go home. But like to be saying shit like my missing glove, we need to go find my missing glove. And then it's like, well, who are you though? Oh, I'm just some random stranger in a van. We need to go find my glove, and I need you, a 12-year-old boy, to come help.
I know. It is actually for the people watching. It does not accurately show in my thing of how many people are watching because it doesn't account for Rumble. There's a bunch of people watching on Rumble right now that I didn't realize. So thank you guys for watching, man. I appreciate that. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. That's awesome. There's a bunch of people on Rumble right now. So it is interesting and that's why I'm like, how do you not teach your kids this type of stuff? Like, I don't know, man. There's something about like, but at the time they were like, people trusted in each other and their neighbors and the people around them, and it wasn't the same, man.
And maybe, look, I know we're obviously not getting the full context as well. I'm sure that they didn't just pull up and be like, hello, I need a glove being found. Come on. Maybe they were way better at like kind of, selling the story or manipulate them. Like even there with that, when they say, they approached and asked for help carrying shopping or whatever. I'm sure that they didn't just like randomly come up and go, carry shopping bags for me. They probably,
Yeah.
like they probably had a way about them or something that they were.
But
able to,
like
convince.
they're more intelligent, right? As a kid, you could do, like, I feel like it's different now. Maybe it isn't or whatever, but like I feel like it's slightly different. But like you could convince them of something. Kids are stupid. People are stupid. There's like, I truly believe there's like 50% of the population that doesn't have an internal monologue. That's fucking real. So I'm like, how, like, these kids are easy to manipulate. Like, oh, your parents sent me. I know your uncle or whatever, but it's like, you got to train your kids properly. Do you have that transcript brought up?
I do, yeah, but I don't have any voice thing.
You don't have like a young, there's no like girl thing or some shit.
The only one I have is this one.
It sounds fucked up, but do you want to do the child in that voice?
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna play some music. It's
this is fucking grim.
Yes, it is. Or do you want me to do the child voice? I don't know. This is like
this is absolutely grim. I can't believe we're actually about to do this.
Well, we did this before. So
Me.
this is a transcript of the tape recorded for the murder of Leslie Ann Downey. I'll be the man, okay? And then I'll switch to the woman, and then you can be the no, it's gonna be hard to do. So you got it, yeah, you have to be the woman, I'll be the man, and I'll try to do the child too, okay? Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm the woman, am I?
Yes, okay.
In a normal voice though, or you want
you got try to do a woman voice. If you can't, just do your sound effects, okay?
But can you even understand me like this?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. This is track 4. Get out of the fucking road! Get in the fucking basket. Sounds of doors banging, crackling noises, footsteps. Steps across the room. Then a recording of a noise following, blowing sound into the microphone. Women. Voice quiet, unreadable. Light footsteps across the room. Whispers. Conversations at the same time. Speech distant. Containing words upstairs, then footsteps. No, Mom. Don't, Mom.
Come on. Shut up.
Oh, please. Help. Oh, help.
Shh. Shut up. Shut up.
Oh.
Keep, and you'll be all right. Go on.
Here.
Hush, hush. Go on. You are all right. Hush, hush. Put it in your mouth.
Oh, man. Do a little louder to make sure we can everyone hear Aaron's voice. Okay, keep going. Jesus.
Hush, hush. Put it in your mouth. Hush and shift that hand. Put it in your mouth and keep it in, and you'll be all right. Put it in. Stop it. If you don't, shh. In your mouth. Hush, hush. Enough or I'll forget myself and keep it in.
This is disgusting. Put it in.
Put it in.
Speaks, but words are unreadable except for the word hand, footsteps. Put it in. Keep it in. Stop it now. Stop it now. That's fucking disgusting. Obviously, they're like...
I'm only doing this and you'll be all right. Put it in your mouth. Put it in.
Further words spoken by the woman which are unreadable except for put it in.
Will you stop? Stop it.
Woman's voice unreadable. Child whimpers.
Shut.
Put it in now. Just put it in now. Love, put it in now. Love, why'd you put it in your mouth? Just do it. It's not what they said, but I made that up. What is this? What's this in for? That's the child. Put it in. Can I just tell you something? I must tell you something. Please take your hand off me for me. Please, Mom, please. I can't tell you. I feel so gross doing this. I can't tell you. I can't breathe. I can't. Dad, will you take hands off me? No, tell me. Please, God. I can't while your hands are on me. Why don't you keep it in? Why are you going to do this to me? I want some photographs. That's all. Put it in. Don't undress me, will you? It's fucking crazy, and you sound like Smeagol. It's so fucking disturbing.
You went a bit Indian there.
I'm sorry.
You were like, don't undress me. Don't
undress me, please, sir. Please, sir. Calm down, sir. Do not do that. So, oh man, I have to make fun of this shit because it's so fucked up.
This is
it's
the worst thing we've ever done.
It's worse than the toy box killer. The craziest thing is the whole time the little girl is going, she's calling them mom and dad and stuff like that. My precious. I can't do it if I'm not just in the mood for it.
Precious, my precious.
and it's disturbing because she's saying like mom and dad, like, why are you doing this? And they're like, just keep going, like, don't untrust me, will you? I can't do it. It's okay. Keep down, woman.
Where am I?
That's right, sir.
That's right. Don't.
It hurts me. I want to see my mommy. Honest to God. Put it in. I swear on the Bible. Fucking Christ. Put it in and hurry up. I can't do this, sir. The quicker you do this, the quicker you'll get home. Okay, now because can you do the child in that voice? Because I don't want to do it. Should we just cut this? Because it's so fucked. I've got to go. I
didn't realize how fucked up.
Yeah, so I wanted to try to find this to play this, but doing it is even more disturbing. I've got to go. I'm going out with my mama. Leave me, please. Help me, will you? And then they just keep telling her to put it in. And the man saying, what's your name? They don't even know their name. And they're asking her questions while they're like doing this to her and shit, which is so fucked up, man.
I'm going to take some photographs, put it in your mouth. Put it in your mouth, right in.
So I don't know. Instead of having this, even Chelsea came in. She was like, what the fuck are you guys reading? So I want to show, I want to see. Yeah, and I'm trying to not make this horrible. Let me pull this up on the thing so people can see it. It's just disturbing that they had this recorded. I looked for the transcript of like where we didn't have to read it, and yeah, it's fucked up, man. And they played this in court too. It's fucked up. Leslie, what's your second name? Westford. They're asking her the names. I have to get home before 8:00, or I'll be killed if I don't. Honest to God. Yes. What is it? I've left the light on. You have? It's like the accent. So that, and then there's like unreal. It hurts me neck. Why do you guys say me? It hurts me neck.
I don't know what that's about.
Now listen, sure, stop crying. It's so fucked. And imagine they had to listen to this in court, and then it gets increasingly worse. I've left the light on, and
What's
then
it's like not that I really want to know, but at one point
does that mean that like they're doing this and then they don't realize that people could be watching?
There's a part there that's like, shh, hush, put that in your mouth, and again, packed more solid.
It's disturbing. I don't know. We like pushing the boundaries on shit, but like that was
Music.
That was way worse than the Toy Box Killer talking about the dog shit that we got into that one time.
Music commences country-style tune followed by Jolly St. Nicholas, during which various non-vocal noises can be heard. Then tune the little drummer boy, during which
they're putting on a record, and the record starts like getting so loud that they can't hear the tape. And they played this in the court and stuff like that too. It's fucking disturbing. But I wanted to, I don't know, to push the boundaries on shit. I wanted to read it, but maybe that wasn't in good taste. And there's like, shut up, you're crying. Leslie says, it hurts me. Shut up now. Put it in. Don't delay. Oh my God. Just keep your mouth shut, please. Wait a bit. I'll put this in again. Don't you get me? That's so fucked, man. And then they play this in the court. Imagine like being there and like you're having to hear this shit. I hope that ruined everybody's day because there's a bunch of people watching. It's just like, fuck.
I felt like I went blind there for about the last like 5 minutes.
Yeah, when I started reading it, I felt really weird. I felt like a disturbing feeling in my soul.
I don't know, when you sent it to me, I glanced over it and I was like, oh yeah, it's just another transcript, whatever.
Yeah, me too. And then now when I started reading it, I started to be like,
this is making me feel weird saying put it in your mouth over and over again.
Yes, yeah, I know. And that's why when Chalice came in the room, she's like, what are you guys fucking doing? And I'm like, well, trying to read a transcript of something, but then once you actually do it, it does sound fucked up. Because like people should know how disturbing this stuff was and what they were doing at the end of the day. Because if this was nowadays, there would be a transcript that was audibly recorded that would have probably been released. A lot of the stuff, and I looked for it, and it came up. It was everywhere. Everyone, it's easy. There's on Reddit, like everywhere you can read these, and it's fucked up.
And
so,
I think what's key here as well is, you know, if people try and twist this into like, oh, you're making fun or making light of the crimes. No, it's more it's more about not trying to hide the aspects of it, of how scummy these people were. I know this mightn't be everybody's like cup of tea or whatever to listen to something like this, but I think it's important as well not to be like, oh, we don't talk about like that aspect of it because like it's too gross. Well, we should know how scummy these people are though.
Yeah. And that's what I've always wanted to do with the true crime aspect. It's not for the faint of heart. If we're going to talk about some of the stuff, we should be analyzing what was happening at the time. And we talked about this with the Paul Bernardo case. When me and Billy did it years ago, is like you have to acknowledge the truth of what was going on there. You have to shed light on some of these disturbing behaviors that these people were doing. Or it's not really like a lot of these YouTube channels and stuff like that. They kind of are just like dance around. Well, this happened and this. You should know what is happening to these people if you're going to cover it, right? Or what's the point? Because like,
or at least like with this show is to have an alternative. So if you want, you can get the kind of the watered down, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but like the kind of more PG version of the story, if that's all you're able for. But then maybe there's people out there that go, well, you know what, I actually want to know like the deeper like stuff behind this and more in depth, that you have that like that opportunity to listen to a show that actually says it like it is rather than cut out half the story.
Why would we? I don't believe in censoring ourselves, especially about these true crime topics, which I'm like, people should know how disgusting and disturbing some of these people are. And it's weird because they obviously assaulted her, killed her, and they think that they strangled her with a piece of string. Again, this string thing of like is very personal. It's very like upfront and like they say like a gunshot is one thing, but like when you're like stabbing someone, it's very personal. It's very up close. A string, or even when me and Billy did the Boston Strangler, is the same idea as like it's very personable, of like right there and seeing it happen. I honestly do not feel bad that we did that. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really care. I think that like this is a case in the fucking 60s. It's a real transcript. You can read it yourselves. And yeah, I do believe in pushing the boundaries on shit. And I don't care if people find that offensive or they can't handle it. But this is the whole point of the show, is to push boundaries on things that cannot be said, and to kind of analyze some of these cases. So I guess Hindley said she filled the bathtub with Downey and found her dead when she returned. Brady claimed that Hindley killed Downey And the following morning, Brady and Hindley drove down the body down to Saddleworth and buried her naked with her clothes at her feet in a shallow grave. And then they have Edward Evans on October 6, 1965. Hindley drove Brady to Manchester Central Railway Station, where she waited outside to a car. He selected the victim. In a few minutes, Brady reappeared in the company of 17-year-old Edward Evans, an apprentice engineer, introduced her to Hindley as his sister, and then they drove to Hindley's home, and then obviously at this point, Brady sent Hindley to fetch David Smith, the husband. This is where it gets weird, of Hindley's younger sister, Maureen. And Hindley's family did not approve of Maureen's marriage to Smith, who had been convicted of several crimes, including actual bodily harm and housebreaking, the first of which, wounded with intent, occurred when he was 11. Throughout the previous years, Brady had been cultivating a relationship with Smith, who had become in awe of Brady, something that increasingly worried Hindley as she felt compromised their safety. Hindley returned with Smith and told him to wait outside for a signal, a flashing light. When the signal came, Smith knocked on the door and was met by Brady, who asked him to come in for miniature wine bottles and left him in the kitchen, saying he had to collect the wine. Smith later told the police, I waited about a minute for suddenly I heard a hell of a scream. It sounded like a woman, really high pitched. The scream carried on one after another, really loud. Then I heard Myra shout, Dave, help him, very loud. When she ran just and stood outside the living room, and I saw a young lad. He was lying with his head and shoulders on the couch and his legs on the floor. He was facing upwards. Ian was standing over him, facing him with his legs on the other side of the young lad's legs. The lad was still screaming. Ian had a hatchet in his hands. He was holding it above his head and hit the lad on the left side of his head with the hatchet. I heard the blow. It was terrible, terribly hard blow. It sounded horrible. I couldn't imagine hearing that shit, dude. So fucked up, man.
Now, so the thing I don't understand though is, so he was invited to watch.
Yes, as far as I can tell, because I've listened to stuff about this before, other podcasts and shit. I think Ian thought that he was kind of cool with it and wanted to like bring him into the fold.
So my point though is, right, again, not defending anybody or like making light of anything, but from his point of view, what's he invited to watch?
I guess a murder. I don't know. It's so fucked.
Like, did they come to him and go, "Hey, man, how do you feel about like us like sexually assaulting kids and murdering them?" And what like, I don't understand. Like, I know he ended up reporting them, and he was like, it was absolutely disgusting. But at what point do you even end up there to go like, actually, you know what? That sounds kind of hot and pretty cool. Actually,
yeah, I know. What the fuck? I know. And that's that boy with the gums on it. I hate fucking making fun of the victims. That's the kid's smile, very keen smile on him. It's fucked
weird,
up,
like,
man.
It's just a weird, like, how would he end up there now it's probably a good thing that he did because it's the reason that got caught. But like, I would be kind of questioning him as in like, David, now could you please tell me again what they said to you and how you ended up in that room?
Yeah, I know.
Because that's very odd that he didn't stick the hatchet in your head. So you were obviously meant to be there. So under what pretense were you there? Like, what did they pitch to you? Because even if they didn't say anything about murder, like even if they went like, oh, we're going to go get some random kid off the street and we're going to do like sexy, cool stuff with him. That's just as bad. Because I'm like,
yeah.
Right then. So you were all right with that then until you weren't.
And yeah, until you saw what was happening. Smith then watched Brady throttle Evan with a length of electrical cord. Brady sprained his ankle in the struggle, and Evan's body was too heavy for Smith to carry because the kid was like 17 or whatever to carry to the car on his own. So they wrapped it in plastic sheeting and put it in the spare room. He then promised to return the next evening to help dispose of the body because he was in on it in some regard. Within an hour, Smith called the police. They searched the Brady's home and found Evan's body. He obviously had some, at least a good, you're right. He's there to do something. with the kid, or he wouldn't have been there.
Yeah,
And
I always found that a little bit fascinating. Like people kind of gloss over it, but I was always like, look, I know the main focus is on these two sickos, but like I was always a bit like weird though, like because the only reason you were able to report them is because you were in the room and you were in the room under some sort of agreement or assumption of something.
yeah.
So like what I don't understand what that assumption was. Also, I think there was a little bit as well about I think they might have left the lights on in whatever van or car she had hired.
Oh, that's why she was freaking out in the transcript over the lights.
Yeah, and what ends up happening is he goes out to the car to turn the lights off and he drops his wallet
Mhm.
and he picks his wallet back up and he puts his wallet on the dash of the rental and closes the door. So that's
Yeah.
another tie that ties them so they can't like say, oh well, no, actually. So like it ended up happening when they did get arrested, everything just fell like dominoes and it was like, wow, you are actually way more dumb than you thought you were. You thought you were a mastermind, but you're actually not.
It's so fucked up and so crazy. Like, it's so disturbing. I think they probably didn't say anything and hope that they got him there and he would be okay with it. Yeah, I agree, John. Like, it's so fucked up, man. And so within hours, he calls the police. Brady insisted that he and Evan got into a fight and that he and Smith murdered Evans and that Hindley wasn't even involved. Brady was arrested for the murder, and Hindley was arrested 4 days later as an accessory to murder. David Smith told the investigators that Brady had stuffed items into a suitcase, and he did not know where it was hidden. He suggests that maybe it was in a railway station. The police searched the lockers at Manchester Central and found a suitcase which contained pornographic pictures of a young girl and tape which recording of the screaming for help of, yeah.
Now, again, another question there for the class. So David told him blah blah blah. Said that there was like photographs and notebooks and shit and whatever, and he put it in a suitcase. Oh, and also, by the way, I think if you're gonna look for them, I have no idea where they are, and I've no idea what's in them. But if you were gonna look for them, maybe look for them in like a railway station, you know, like maybe Manchester Central Station or something. Just random, I don't know. And then they went there and they were like, wow, what do you know? The suitcase is fucking here.
Yeah, I know. He knew where it was. He saw the pictures probably.
Weird.
And he was part of it. Like, it must have been. And then when it went to like murder, he was like, I'm all right with fucking.
Like, yeah, I'm not. Yeah,
I'm not okay with like.
I'm not saying like that. You know, he should be considered the exact same as them or anything, but like, and maybe it was because he was the one giving all the information that they were like, okay, we're gonna forget about this other creepy fucking shit that you might have been up to. But there's definitely a weird aspect to him as well.
Yeah, and there's not much touched upon it as well
Not really.
As what he was doing.
And maybe I'm wrong, but I think we're probably the first podcast that's actually pointed that out. I've listened to a lot of shows about this case, and nobody's ever mentioned all those weird convenient things that have happened where he just happened to be in the room and I don't know why, and he just happened to know that there was a suitcase and just
I'm
happened
doing quotations for the audio. Like,
Yeah,
it
that's
happens. Oh my God. And he knows where everything is. He was part of it for sure. And the girl in the pictures and on the tape identifies Leslie Ann Downey. And it's disturbing. I want to read the transcript to be like, how, like, this is fucked up, man, that they were doing this. And people might find that like disturbing, or like, what's the word I want to look for? Like, it's just I don't know. It's I don't know. I think it should be stated of how fucking disturbing this stuff was, right? Or if it was cringy or whatever. I'm trying. There's another word I'm looking for, but the name John Kilbride was also found and written in a book. There were several hundred pictures in the couple's homes, including several taken in the Saddleworth Moor, suspecting that the couple was involved in some cases of missing children. A search party for the Moors was organized. During the search, the bodies of Leslie Ann Downey and John Kilbride were found. After listening to the tapes recording of Leslie Ann Downey and clearly hearing the voices of Brady and Hindley in the background, Hindley admitted she was sharp and cruel in her treatment of the child because she was afraid someone might hear her screams. crimes. As other crimes committed on the child, Hindley claimed to be in another room or looking out of the window. So on May 26, 1966, the jury just took 2 hours of deliberation before returning, getting a verdict of the guilty on all charges for both Brady and Hindley. Brady was sentenced to 3 terms of life imprisonment, and Hindley received 2 life sentences and concurrent 7-year sentence. After spending almost 20 years in prison, Brady allegedly confessed to the murders of Pauline Reed and Keith Bennett. When he was being interviewed by a newspaper journalist, based on the information, the police reopened their investigation and went to interview Brady. He described to be uncooperative, like he didn't want to deal with it. And it's so fucked. So interesting enough, as we bring this to a close, I just want to play this clip of this is Myra's mother talking about how they shouldn't be let out.
The mother of Leslie Ann Downey, Ann West, was one of those who gave countless interviews to argue against any suggestion of release.
No way can they let them out. If they do, I'll be going in because she'll be dead. She was a woman. She should have had motherly instincts. She is not human. Devil's daughter. But there's always that little doubt in my mind that one day maybe they will be set free. And that's what's on my mind when I go to bed every night. My child begged her, please let me go. I know what you've done to me and I'll not tell Mummy. Please let me go home to Mummy. She wouldn't do that for my daughter. Do you think I could ever forgive her? The monster she is. She deserves all she gets, that monster. And more, and more. That woman will not live if she comes out of prison. I know people have said they'll do it for me. I don't want that. I don't want nobody to get in trouble, especially my boys. They've got their lives to live. I'm half dead now. I'm living on pills. I will willingly do that woman in and take my punishment, and I will expect to be put in prison where I should stay until the end of my days.
I don't like this expression, an angel, because, I mean, she's a very nice person at the moment, and I'm certain if she's let out, there's absolutely no risk at all that she'd ever, molest a child in any sense at all.
I had to hear the tapes of my daughter, and I never heard Ian Brady. It was Myra Hindley on that tape with my daughter, not Ian Brady. I had to listen to that and identify the body.
When I met Lord Longford, he said that he liked you.
Oh, God, you wouldn't think so, the way he's treated me.
He also said he felt sorry for you because he thought you got trotted out, was the phrase he used.
Well, what he said to me actually was, I would never see Leslie again. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, because unless you forgive him and her, you won't go to heaven. I said, well, all right, Lord Longford, I'll go where you're going. I won't go to heaven, I'll go with you where you're going. And I did call him. I said, you're the devil's advocate. Some sins maybe, but that's
remember that doesn't hear on the audio. This is Leslie.
I say the Lord's Prayer
his
each
mother
and every night.
speaking.
As a matter of fact, my husband will tell you he's not in the room. I'm 2 hours saying prayers. But there's one part of the Lord's Prayer I will never ever say, and I never do. And I think you know what that is, so I'm not going to say it for you.
Do you think God will forgive you for not forgiving her?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Crazy, man. Disturbing, right? Because they're just like, yeah, don't let her out. Even Myra's own mother was like, no. Like, and it's crazy that there was people that were trying to just like say like, yeah, we should let her out. I don't think she would do this again. It's like what they did for Carla Mocha. Carla Mocha was like at school, like schools in Quebec and shit like that. It's disturbing. And the word I was looking for is if people think it was in bad taste to cover some of that stuff. I just think like, why not? Like, we should be talking about this objectively and being able to read the transcripts and things of murder cases to try to understand why they were happening, or to be like, look at how disturbing this stuff really is when you break it down. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of other stuff as well about this about all this shit. Like I was listening to there's a really good podcast called I can't remember the exact name of it. Anything Goes with James English.
Yeah,
And he talks to all these different he could have anybody on the show basically, but he has an episode that came out in June last year, and it is called My Relationship with Child Killer Myra Hindley. Prison officer Joe Chapman tells his story. And so basically this guy he was a prison officer in HMP Cookham Wood, where Hindley was incarcerated. He had been known to be kind and compassionate towards prisoners. While in prison, supposedly Hindley had manipulated several people, including Joe Chapman, into sympathizing with her. She portrayed herself as a victim of Ian Brady's control, claiming she had been coerced into the Moors murders. Chapman developed a strong emotional connection with Hindley, and they had allegedly become romantically involved. Now, I'm not sure if that's true or not. He says on that podcast last year that wasn't true. And he treated her with the same respect that he also treated other, like he brought his kids into prison to parties where there was like child murders and stuff, playing like instruments and shit, and he talks about it really matter of fact, which I think is just creepy and weird. But supposedly he had like smuggled letters and stuff and gave her like special treatment. He helped facilitate meetings between Hindley and a nun who had campaigned for her release. He was eventually caught and dismissed from his job for breaking prison rules. Supposedly his career was ruined, and the case sparked a scandal about how easily Hindley was able to manipulate people even behind bars.
It's so fucked up, man. This whole case is crazy. Like I knew it was gonna be disturbing because anything to do with like child killing is one thing. Like being able to talk about I don't know, someone like Jeffrey Dahmer, right? Which we did like almost 4 hours on, which is crazy. Of like him like luring in gay people from the bars and killing them. It's disturbing enough, but when it comes to like kids being murdered for the sexual satisfaction of some sick couple, it is like very disturbing. And it's fucked up. But this was like it's so crazy, man. So on November 8, 1986, Hindley received a letter from Winnie Johnson, Keith Bennett's mother, in which she begged Hindley to give up any information about her son's whereabouts. As a result, Hindley agreed to look at the photos and maps to identify places she had been with Brady. I feel like how would you not know, man? It's not like you're like murdering 20 kids. It's like it's 5 children. You must know where they are. It was probably ingrained into your memory. Later, Hindley was taken to Saddleworth Moor, but unable to identify anything that would help the investigation of the missing children. And on February 10th, 1987, Hindley made a tape confessing to her involvement in the murders, because before she was kind of just denying it. In Pauline, John, Keith, Leslie, and Edward's deaths, she did not confess to being present during the actual murders of any victims. When Brady was told of Hindley's confession, he did not believe it. But once he was given details that only he and Hindley knew, he knew that she had confessed. He also agreed to confess, but with a condition that could not be met, which was a way to kill himself after confessing. So he wanted to die. He wanted them to kill him. Hindley again visited the moor in March 1987. It's crazy, so many years after. Although she was able to confirm area, and being searched on the target, she could not identify the exact location of where the children were buried. But on July 1st, 1987, Pauline Reed's body was found buried in a shallow grave close to where Brady had buried Leslie Ann Downey. 2 days later, Brady was taken to the morgue, but claimed that the landscape had changed too much and was unable to help the search for Keith Bennett's body. The following months of the search were called off indefinitely. Ian Brady spent the first 19 years of his incarceration in Durham prison. In November 1985, he moved to Ashworth Psychiatric Hospital after being diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic. Myra Hindley suffered a brain aneurysm in 1999 and died in prison on November 15, 2002. From complications brought on by heart disease, reportedly after 20 undertakers refused to cremate her remains. That's crazy. The case of Brady and Hindley is considered the most grisly serial crimes in Britain's history, pretty much.
Also, I think there's something else there. I think when he goes to that psychiatric hospital, I'm pretty sure that he had to be moved at some point because he was found to be grooming all the younger patients there, all the boys.
Yeah.
So they were like, right, you need to get out of here. Also, as well, another thing, this is completely up in the air. She did have a relationship with this person that I'm about to talk about, but to the extent of all the other stuff, I'm not entirely sure. So she did have a relationship with Lord Astor. So a lot of people suggest that Hindley had connections to high-ranking officials, including Lord William Astor, a wealthy British aristocrat. Now, she did actually have a relationship with him because he used to send her money and like pay for all her shit and stuff like that. These rumors often arise from theories attempting to connect Brady and Hindley's crimes to a larger network of influential figures, similar to cases like the Profumo case or an elite paedophile ring. No evidence has ever surfaced in a police investigation, media reports, or any court records to confirm or deny any direct link between any of this. William Waldorf Astor, which is he was a British nobleman, best known for being involved in the Profumo affair, a political scandal in 1963 involving sex, espionage, and government officials. He was never linked to the Moors murders, nor was he implicated in anything to do with Brady or Hindley. Some people believe that they were involved in a broader ring of elite individuals engaged in horrific crimes, but there's no solid proof of this to this day. Brady himself claimed in later years that he had knowledge of other high-profile figures involved in crimes, but he provided no evidence before his death. These claims often circulate in alternative media and conspiracy forums, but they have never been substantiated.
Interesting. It's always like there's always these cases of stuff where it's like, how do you know how many people were involved? There is this idea of like them brainwashing people to like kind of commit these acts of murder to like push on the public consciousness. It's such a fucked up case. I've always wanted to cover this. I kind of like going back in time and covering some of these older cases before we really dive into like we've done Dahmer and Richard Ramirez and stuff like that. There's some of these cases where I like going back in time to kind of analyze these older murders, very famous that a lot of people may not have heard of, and it's disturbing to say the least. I don't really care if people think what we did with the transcript is bad taste. I don't give a fuck. People need to realize that very disturbing things happen in this world. And if you don't have the thick enough skin to deal with it, that's your problem. It's not mine. And there are some really fucked up things. And I will continue to push the boundaries on what we can and cannot say. When it comes to like true crime, when it comes to what's happened in the world and in history. And I believe in having an open mind and questioning everything. But I think we did this justice. It's such a messed up case. And there's even more disgusting and disturbing things that we'll be getting into in the future. But for everybody that watched and listened and, came with us this far throughout this journey of this disturbing series of one of the most disturbing crimes in the annals of British history, give a like, subscribe, share the show, give us 5-star rating reviews, all that good stuff. Obviously, shout out to Class Horrorcast. Make sure my wonderful lava lamp fell the other day. And I smashed the light bulb, but I had new lava lamp light bulbs, and I don't think it works anymore. I was like, there's not. It's been hours, and it should within half an hour it should be flowing, but nothing. Sad.
It looks cool.
Still shitty. Fuck. But yeah, I appreciate everybody that listens, watches, supports the show. It does mean a lot to us. But yeah. I need to get in a better mood. I was like near the end, I was like, this shit is fucked up. So
It is actually. This is one of the first ones that like has me drained at the end.
I know it's sad, but it's fine. Everything's fine. The world's fine. Is it? I don't know, but it's support the show. I would really appreciate it. All that's good stuff. Like, comment, yeah. Anything you want to say to finish this off? Take nothing seriously. Stop being a bitch.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what to say. Yeah, like, look, at the end of the day, I think these things need to be covered. It's hard to know how to navigate them.
Yeah,
To try,
I agree.
to try and make light of them, not to make it overly serious, even though it's a serious topic, I know. But I think it's probably the only way to make it anyway, like listenable, if that's even a word. Because I think it's hard to consume if you go full in depth. Also, Tom is opening the top button of his shirt there, and you mentioned anal a few seconds ago, and it's funny actually. There's a little fun fact that I'll leave everybody with. One of Ian Brady's favorite things was anal. So
That was his favorite thing.
yeah,
I don't like ice cream. I like getting fucking candlesticks on my ass.
no, not even to have it on him. Yeah, to actually, yeah. So
they were a sadomasochist, and he believed in like inflicting pain on others too, and stuff like that. So, fun topic, everybody. We haven't dived into true crime in a bit. Very disturbing shit. It's gonna get more disturbing as we go through some of these. Wait till we touch upon things like John Wayne Gacy, man. I'm going to tell you the full details of what happened. Because I think they should be said, and I think that people should know how disturbing some of these serial killers are. So I'm not going to dance this line of like, oh, then they're just doing this and that. Like, we should be talking about, if we're going to do true crime, we might as well do it we might as well push to the limit, push the limit to the limit, whatever that song is,
I've never heard that song, but okay.
Yeah, you'll find out, I'm sure. This Limp Bizkit like and fuck.
Oh God, here we go again. It's Limp Bizkit shit.
Yeah, Gacy is fucked up. Okay, everybody, thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for watching. This won't be out on your platforms for a couple of weeks, but everybody that watched and listened, make sure to support the show. I never know how to end these, so stay strange, fuckers. We have a lot of things coming. There's episodes that still need to be released on. Me and Billy have an episode about chupacabra and stuff like that is coming out soon. So, support all that good stuff. I don't know how to end this. It's such a disturbing case. Stay strange.
I was trying to think of something funny, but I don't have anything.
Stay strange, everybody.